This is the Bears Barroom Radio Network. Draft on Tap is rated PG. Parental discretion is advised.
With the 8th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Roquan Smith, linebacker, Georgia.
Well, he might have been the best player in the college football playoff, even though Georgia didn't win the national championship. From the hometown of Montezuma, Georgia, he now goes to join the legends of the monsters of the Midway like Butkus, Singletary, Wilber Marshall, Urlacher, etc.
And here comes Mack again, but Kaiser gets away from him, but not from Smith. How's that for the opening play of your career? As Goff fires over the middle and it's intercepted at the 26-yard line. Roquan Smith, the rookie from Georgia, bounced out of bounds inside the 5.
In the 2018 draft, the Chicago Bears select James Daniels, center, Iowa.
Keep in mind, he's a youngster. He won't turn 21 until September 13th, and there are plenty of good things to like in James Daniels' game.
2018 second-round pick James Daniels had an excellent rookie campaign, starting 10 games at left guard. With talk now of possibly moving Daniels to center, his more natural position, the sky is the limit for the 21-year-old.
With the 51st pick of the 2018 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Anthony Miller, receiver, Memphis.
And how about this? Anthony Miller, there's the reaction in Memphis, Tennessee. He is going to be the latest weapon for Mitchell Trubisky.
Trubisky, play action, to the end zone. Touchdown, Bears, Anthony Miller. On second down, Trubisky well protected, wide open. Anthony Miller slips a tackle. Miller to the end zone. Touchdown, Bears.
Drink up, Bears fans. This is Draft on Tap, episode number 3. I am Aldo Gandia. Shayne Marsaw and Danny Shimon will join me in about a minute. I just want to tell you, first of all, that we've got quite the show planned for you. LJ Collier from TCU, the defensive end linebacker, is scheduled to join us. And also, Davon Muldrow, the slot cornerback, safety, linebacker hybrid from New Mexico, will also join us. We'll see if they've had any contact with Bears personnel and learn more about their collegiate careers. Later in this show, Bearlissimo will share with us his report on the 2015 draft of the Chicago Bears. That was, of course, Ryan Pace's first draft with the Bears, and we'll react to Bearlissimo's opinion of those picks. And we'll begin the show by learning from Danny Shimon who are the 5 running backs he's chosen that he thinks the Bears might be targeting in round 3 or later in this upcoming draft. Fellas, I'm going to pop open a beer, and before we get to some football talk, I want to ask you each how you're doing. Shayne, beginning with you.
Getting ramped up, getting ready to go. I'm getting to the point with some of these guys, I think it's paralysis by analysis. You go back and you want to read one more thing, check out one more game, and you're like, yeah, I've already done this. I've already done this enough on some guys, but you still get intoxicated by it and drawn back into it. I know Danny's got that same bug that I do when you're just you want to check one more time because maybe you missed something that's going to, stick out to you. But at this point, you're coming down the home stretch. You want to make sure that you have everything done and get everything that, it doesn't really matter where these guys go. You just want to be right on the player themselves at the end of the day and have the guys that are going to be good, you want to hit on them, and the guys that are going to flame out, you want to be sure you have those guys earmarked too.
Shayne, you're exactly right, man. Just going through these tape, going over and over again. Funny, my son's 5, and he sits, kind of watches tape with me, and he says, Daddy, how come you keep rewinding the same play over and over again?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I got to see different things. So, I'm like, you're too young for this. I'll explain to you when you grow up a little bit older. But so, yeah, just, continue to, break down the tape and just see, like, again, I'm not, just like you, Shayne, I'm not into projecting, this is going to be a first-round pick, second-round pick. Yeah. I want to project the player, especially what we're doing here is we're looking for guys that fit the Bears scheme specifically. Yeah. Do they have the athleticism? Do they have the agility? Do they have the length? Do they, whatever the trait there, the Bears tend to look for. So, we've been in with some drafts here with Pace. We kind of know what he looks for, what he likes. And, a year with Nagy, we kind of know what he looks for and what he likes. So, breaking it down and seeing how these kids, envisioning how these kids fit into their schemes, both offensively and defensively, heck, even on special teams, is basically what we're doing now. And a lot of times, you just got to keep going back and just rewatching stuff. So it's fun, but it's also time consuming, and at times your eyes can get a little blurry, and you like see double vision. But at the end of the day, it's for me, it's fun.
Well, let's have some fun identifying the 5 running backs that Danny Shimon has for us, and we'll take them one by one. We're going to do the first one now. I'm going to play my gay little music.
Before we do that, I just want to interject. These are the running backs that I selected in terms of not necessarily with the 87th pick in the draft. Some might go there, but these are running backs that if the Bears do go a different position at the 87th pick, these guys could also be available. Some of them, third, a fourth, fifth round. So. And I also want to say David Montgomery and I think Miles Sanders will not be available, so that's why they are not in my list.
Excellent. I'm glad you pointed that out because, I think those guys, their stock just seems to be rising. And I'd be shocked if they're there at 87 and if they're there. In fact, I think we mentioned this in last week's show. If they're there at 75, then I'm hoping that Ryan Pace is working the phones and trying to move up to snare one of those top running backs. But so you've identified these 5 guys, and so let's start with number 1. Mike Weber, Ohio State.
Another handoff, and Weber is loose inside the 30-yard line. Gets a block from the receiver, and he's gone. Touchdown, Ohio State.
All right, Danny, tell us why Mike Weber is a player you've identified for the Bears.
All right, so Weber, 5'10", 211 pounds, ran a 4.47 40 at the combine, had a 33.5-inch vertical. For me, this kid had an up-and-down career at Ohio State. He comes in, a highly recruited 4-star kid out of Michigan, and goes on and rushes for over 1,000 yards, becoming only the 3rd freshman in Ohio State history to do that, joining Robert Smith and Maurice Clarett. And then and it becomes freshman of the year, so on and so forth, gets all these accolades. So sophomore year, 2017, he hurts his hamstring in the fall practice, and he misses 2 games, but it hampers him for the rest of the season. And then lo and behold, here comes J.K. Dobbins, and now he's a freshman sensation, and now they're splitting carries. So that kind of, his numbers kind of go from 1,000 yards to a little over 600 yards in the second season, and it kind of becomes to me like a forgotten man at Ohio State. And then this past season, again, he's splitting carries with Dobbins, but he has a bounce back year. He's healthy, rushes for 954 yards, averages 5.5 yards a carry and 5 touchdowns. So what I like about him, he's got that small, compact frame with loose hips, lateral quickness, and body lean that I'm looking for in these running backs. He's got good balance, short area burst and acceleration. I mean, he has a second gear when he gets through the line of scrimmage and into the second level of the defense. Very good eyes. He can navigate through traffic. He can get small. And he can squeeze through creases. Very good competitive, like we said, play speed. He's got the ability to break big runs. Solid finisher. He'll bounce off and spin off of would-be tacklers. He takes on contact. He's got solid, reliable hands as a pass catcher. And he's good as a pass blocker. So some of those are the things that I like about him. Obviously, some of the negatives, you look at his play strength. He's got adequate play strength. He could stand to add more size and more weight. And in terms of a red flag that I caught was his ball security. He's got 10 fumbles in his career, so he's got to shore that up. But like Shayne mentioned last week, none of these guys are going to be perfect. These are all going to be guys that are going to have some flaws, and that's why they're available in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds. So what we're trying to do, as we mentioned earlier, we're trying to find these traits that would fit in the Bears system. And I think his speed, competitiveness in terms of finishing his runs. He's also a leader on the Ohio State offense as well. So I like those things about him. I think he'd be a nice fit.
Shayne, what do you think about Weber?
He's a guy that I didn't watch a whole bunch on initially, and then I dove into him semi-recently over the last, I don't know, probably 4.5 weeks or so. And Danny, you can chime in here and tell me if I'm wrong. We always complain. What do we complain about with Tarik Cohen? We say put your foot in the ground and get up. You get those. If it's 1, 2, 3, 4, who cares? Don't make it -4. When I watch Weber, I see that when he has those positive yards that are there, he's going to put his foot in the ground and he's going to get those yards, and he can get them, with a vengeance. And that's, how this game goes, guys. Though, like I said, the 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth yard or the fourth quarter rolls around, those become 12, 15, 48. That's exactly, I think, what Matt Nagy is looking for in a back. I've always scared off when I see these guys that have these running backs that are having hamstring injuries. I don't know if it's, you look back to the John Fox days and it's how many soft tissue injuries did the Bears have. And I know he had a significant one there at Ohio State, and I believe he had an arm injury too, Danny?
In 2017, his second season he missed. Well, the majority of it was because of the hamstring.
But I think he dinged up his arm there too. And the biggest thing is that I think I see a lot of these people on Twitter, and I know I referred to this the other day. I think so many fans are looking at these guys and are expecting them, just because the Bears are going to focus on these guys, that they're going to come in and they're going to be Todd Gurley. They're going to be Saquon Barkley. And that's not what this is going to be about. He's a perfect guy to be part of this committee moving forward. He's going to fit in and he's going to have his role. And he's going to be a guy that he's got that. He's not a huge guy, but he's got that enough size where he can hold up if you need to pound him in between the tackles to run your 4-minute offense to ice a team at the end of the game. He's not, you're not going to get that type of a deal from Tarik Cohen, obviously. But my number one thing that I saw with him is when you could see that those positive yards were there, Weber stuck his foot in the ground and he went. And that's such a huge deal for us with what we've been dealing with Tarik Cohen that just seems to have a magnet to the sideline a lot of times, looking for that big play.
Yeah, he only had 3 games where he carried the ball 20 or more times, so he definitely is considered a guy who is going to work as a committee, as part of a committee at running back. He's not likely to be a 20-plus carry a game for 10 games a season.
But the thing with him, though, is, sorry to interrupt, but the thing with him, he's 5'10", 211. I think if he adds 8 to 9 pounds, he gets close to that 220 range. I think he has the possibility of becoming a 20, 21 carry guy. He might not be a bell cow workhorse. He still might be part of a committee, or I should say best suited to be part of a committee. But I think he's a guy, if he adds some more weight to his frame and doesn't lose that quickness and speed, I think he can get away with it. But again, we're just projecting here. And Shayne, you made a great point. Guys are expecting the Bears to get guys like Saquon Barkley and Todd Gurley. Those guys weren't picked 87th overall. Right. Those guys are top 5 in the draft, top 10 in the draft. So, again, we're finding traits that we feel would fit in this system and be part of a committee. Because believe it or not, the Bears are going to have a committee, whether we like it or don't like it. The way they got rid of Jordan Howard, I think these last couple of days, kind of thinking over that whole trade scenario, I think what it tells me, and Shayne, you alluded to this on Saturday, they like Mike Davis more than we do.
Yeah.
And so they see, as Mike Davis, in my opinion, they see him as an upgrade already to Jordan Howard. So I think they already think we've upgraded our running back position. Whatever we get here in the draft is gravy. Yeah,
and I think one thing that's important, Danny, when you brought up for him to put on, the 8 or 9 pounds, he puts on 8 or 9 pounds, he's going to remind you a lot of Mike Davis. He's not a guy that's super explosive. He's got some shiftiness. You can see a little bit of that. He's just going to be he's not Todd Gurley, not Saquon Barkley, but he's going to be a guy you can run in between the tackles with, and he's going to be a guy that you can put out and that can run some pass patterns for you, give you some first downs there. And we know Jordan Howard, he made some plays in the passing game, but it wasn't a guy that if you put him out there, the defense didn't really take it serious most of the time when you put Jordan Howard out there. Mike Weber is the guy that you're going to have to pay attention to, and I see a lot of that in Mike Davis. I don't think he's as big yet, but I think they do have a lot of similar ability in a lot of ways.
You guys spoke last week of the Bears quite possibly not picking a running back at 87, and this player looks like he could definitely be available in round 4. I don't see him as a top 100 player, but I could be wrong, but I think it's likely he'll be there in round 4. You guys agree?
I agree, yeah. I mean, I think that I just have a feeling that people, especially Bears fans, I think they know that the Bears are in the running back market, so I think when they're looking at this draft, they're just expecting the guy that they like will not be there. And I'm telling you, when this draft comes around, yeah, there's going to be a run, just like there always is. But I really think that run is going to start, end of the 3rd round, 4th round, and down into the 5th round, because there's so many guys. Danny's got 5 guys on his list. I got 5 guys on my list, and Danny and I both could have expanded our list to 10, just like that. Danny, I'm sure Danny will agree with me. There's a lot of guys out there. I mean, I think that the Bears are going to be in the UDFA market at the running back position to see what they have, yes. And it's it's not a lot of top end guys that you're going to be like, oh my God, I got to get him on my Madden team because he's fast and elusive and he can catch. It's not that. There's part of a committee pushes these guys up the ladder from the Bears' perspective. Maybe not from the Rams' perspective or from New Orleans' perspective or whomever, but these guys all have value in their different ways.
Right now, there's talk about no running backs going in the 1st round. About a week ago or 2 weeks ago, Josh Jacobs was going to go in the 1st round. Mm-hmm. Now there's talk about him going in the top, second day, top of the 2nd round. And we mentioned Montgomery and Sanderson, the kid from Penn State, also going in the 2nd round. So, those 3 guys going in the 2nd round. There could be a run in the tail end of the 2nd round on running backs, but most likely, like Shayne mentioned, in the 3rd round is where we're going to see a run on running backs. And, if the Bears are sitting there with the 87th pick and they're saying, all right, we got 4 or 5 guys that we still like, and if there's another player dropping at another position, they might skip that running back and then go for that running back in the 4th round or later on in the draft. Hence why I put in some players here that I know will not be selected with the 87th pick, but guys that could be taken in the 4th, 5th round.
Imagine Josh Jacobs falling to the top of the 2nd round and Ryan Pace creating some trading magic. That would be pretty wild.
If I was taking my Mike North jelly beans and putting them in the center of the table right now, I would bet right now that there's no running backs drafted in round 1.
Ooh, that's going to be fun.
I tend to agree with Shayne right there,
yeah.
All right. Justice Hill, Oklahoma State.
1st down to the 5. Hill breaks free, picks up a 1st down and more, turns on the breakaway speed. Then he outrun the field. Here's Justice Hill at the 20, still on the move, stiff arm on his feet, finally goes down inside the 5. A 93-yard run. Zach Sanders finally.
Justice Hill from Oklahoma State. What do you think, Danny?
That's the perfect soundbite right there. I mean, this kid has got big play potential written all over him. I first noticed him last year as a sophomore playing at Oklahoma State because I was scouting, the Mason Rudolph. I was scouting his teammate James Washington, and then Marcel Aitman, the other receiver, and he just kept making play. I'm like, who is this kid? I looked him up, and I know he's only a sophomore. He came in as a freshman in 2016 and was the top rushing season in Oklahoma State for a freshman, over 1,100 yards. He, in 2017, as a sophomore, led the Big 12 in rushing with 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns. So first team All Big 12, first team academic All Big 12. So this kid's got a head on his shoulders as well. The one thing you get about him, what you like about him, is that explosiveness, the quick cutting. His feet are explosive. He can cut in and out of holes, stop, start. He's got the ability to run between the tackles, and he is also very explosive in terms of the passing game. He could flank out as a receiver, and when you get the ball in his hands as a screener, in a screenplay, he's got the ability to 1-cut, 2-cut, and go all the way. So his big playability, again, his traits, that's what it is. His size, 5'10", 198 pounds, that's going to scare me. He's not a 3rd-and-1 guy. He's not a guy who's going to be making his living running in between the tackles. He can break runs in between the tackles, but he's going to make most of his living, outside the tackles, bouncing runs outside, and catching, screen passes. And so this is a kid that's going to be well suited to be playing part of a committee, especially if you have guys like Mike Davis, Terry Cohen, possibly Ryan Nall. So I think this guy fits in that way with his traits. And, I thought he could be available like in a 4th round range, but now there's a scuttlebutt, but, second round, late second round, early 3rd round. So, he may or may not be available. But if you want to talk explosive, this kid's got that.
He can squat 565 pounds. Holy cow.
He's got a 40-inch vertical.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That tells you why he's explosive right there. That's crazy.
What have you seen out of Justice Hill, Shane?
When I'm watching these guys, I always, I have my little yellow notepad here, and I always put stars down to things that kind of surprise me and things that I want to go back and look at. And Danny, you can chime in here again and tell me, I was surprised at this guy's pass protection.
He will stick his nose in there and block.
Yeah, he will. And, I mean, with him being so small, and this is, again, we go back to having that dog, and we see defensive end there that the Rams traded for from Jacksonville, Fowler. We saw the little exchange with them on Twitter, and then people were going back at Fowler when Tariq stood him up. I see a lot of that in Justice Hill because he's not going to back down from anybody, and even being as small as he is. And you're talking about a guy like this, and it's with me, these guys that are that small, they better have the feet. And this guy is if you don't even watch him above the waist, just stare at his feet when you're watching him. It's just like he's on, it's like everybody else is on the sloppy Soldier Field turf, and this kid's on clouds. It's just he's got those really, really light feet. And he's, with him being so slippery, Danny, this goes to another thing that we brought up the other day, that 3rd and 1 play with Jordan Howard when he could have housed it and really probably would have affected the game in a way that obviously would have been so much better for Chicago, is the balance with this kid. With a smaller back, you always want them to have that good balance. This kid has that elite balance where if he does get tripped up, he can maintain that balance, and then he gets going again very, very fast and can pull away and make those big chunk plays that Matt Nagy wants. It's not about 15, 20 carries, 25 carries to have an effective running game. Again, running back by committee. And you just think about what they are going to do now with a guy like Cordero Patterson, with a guy like Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton. You flank out Tariq Cohen, and you have a guy like Justice Hill in the backfield. Matt Nagy's got to be, he's got his jar of Vaseline there while he's watching his tape, and he's going crazy at the thought of that. And who's that going to help out, Danny? That's going to help out number 110, right? Our triple-digit quarterback.
That's it, number 110.
Yeah, Mr. April Fool's himself. But one-on-one, this kid's going to win, and we didn't always see that with Jordan Howard. And like I said, this isn't a bash Jordan Howard fest, but it's that hidden yardage there that can make such a huge difference in a game just on one run. And that is where Justice Hill is going to win.
Jordan Howard, I forgot the stat off the top of my head, but he was like, I think led the league in terms of negative runs. So like he was taken down in the backfield so many times. This kid, Hill, has the ability to make defenders miss at the line of scrimmage. So if a guy breaks through the line, he's there in the backfield, he can make a miss at the line of scrimmage. His quickness from the mesh point by the time he gets the ball, when he gets to the line of scrimmage, is so quick, it's ridiculous. Yep. And then he just flies through the line of scrimmage, and he's into the second level, and he's already now looking downfield, looking to set up his blocks downfield. So that 3rd and 1 play you keep going back to in the Philly game, this kid takes it to the house. That's the kind of speed he's got.
Yeah, and I think one thing that gets overlooked too is this kid with his speed. Running back is usually if not the easiest. These guys transition to the NFL, and you see a guy like Jordan Howard coming in the 5th round and making an impact. I don't think the speed of the game affects this kid. He's got that dog in him. He's so fast himself, and he knows it. He's going to make a play, and then he's going to go up and tell you about it. And it reminds me so much of Tariq Cohen that way. You like these diminutive guys that just don't give a shit. They're going to go out there, and they're going to. He's undersized, but like we said, he's going to stick his face with pass pro, and he's going to give you everything he has, and you don't find that a lot with running backs. I mean, we've seen it here in Chicago, even with guys that had size. Sometimes they're just not. They just don't have the heart or the head for it. And this kid, Justice Hill, he does.
He's been compared by some to Philip Lindsay. Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, that was my comp. That was my comp right away when I saw him. I'm like, all right, this kid looks,
I think he's even more explosive.
He's more explosive. I think Lindsay is I don't want to say tougher, but I think he's a more physical runner. Lindsay is. But this kid is more explosive, and in body size, everything, speed-wise, I think this guy is probably faster than Lindsay. But, I mean, that's the comp that I had. I mean, this kid, we talked about getting him 10, 15 carries. This kid could have 4 carries for 100 yards. I mean, that's how explosive he is, So if you get 4 carries for 100 yards, he's contributed mightily to probably a Bears victory there. So that's, again, traits that he brings to this team, and putting him in a committee back there with Mike Davis and Tariq Cohen, I think would lend that explosiveness that we keep talking about, that what Nagy and the Bears want.
Danny, how would you feel about him on special teams and some spot duty? If you wanted to take, Tariq Cohen off of that, that's another benefit right there. Yeah. Well,
I believe he's got kickoff return experience in college, but with Patterson now, you kind of figure he's got that position locked up. But if you need, you can put him back there to be able to utilize that speed and be able to use him on special teams as well. Sure, he's got that ability.
What you're saying is he's an upgrade from Benny Cunningham, right?
Moment of silence. Benny Cunningham is now a Jacksonville Jaguar, guys. We got to pour one out.
Oh, all right, Benny Cunningham. Good luck to you. We don't want to see you here in Chicago ever again.
Aldo's congratulating him because he's just glad he can't sign back in Chicago.
Exactly. Dexter Williams, Notre Dame.
Williams in the game for the first time this year for Notre Dame. Takes the handoff and takes off. Williams on the run, all the way for a touchdown.
Our guy, Danny, we talked to him a couple times down at the Senior Bowl. We asked him about the problems he had off the field with marijuana possession and the unlicensed gun. And, boy, in our interview of him, he aced the test. And you like what you see on tape, huh?
It feels like I've been talking about Dexter Williams for over a year now, but in reality, it's just been since January. I mean, seriously, before I went down to Mobile, I watched his tape and I loved his traits. I loved his explosiveness. I went down to Alabama, watched him at the practices. He didn't, we didn't do anything great, but also he did. He had a solid week. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And then had a touchdown in the game. Had a pretty good run there for a touchdown. And I think he just keeps checking off the boxes. And again, I go back to what he gives you. He gives you the size at 5'11", 212 pounds. He gives you that explosiveness. They'll be able to cut and go. One plant, and he sees the hole, and he is gone. I mean, there are games, and I'm sure you've seen his tapes, Shayne, where he is literally running away from people. I mean, and it's not even close. He's got 10, 15 yards on DBs, and they cannot catch him. So that explosiveness is what I love about him, and his ability to see the cutback and to be able to feel the lanes developing off of his blockers. The off-the-field stuff, like Aldo mentioned, we talked about it with him, and he seemed like a sincere kid, seemed very believable. He told us that he was going to just tell them the truth. So assuming all that's in the past, assuming the Bears and other NFL teams are comfortable with what he's telling them in terms of what happened there, I think this kid has, that this fourth round, possibly late third round range is what you're looking for with him. But again, a kid that gives you that explosive playmaking ability, the one cut and go, with him. Pass catching, he wasn't utilized that much in terms of, as a pass catcher, but, the screens that they tossed to him, he caught cleanly. I didn't see many drops. He had some drops in Mobile in some of the practices, but in terms of, on tape, I really didn't see him utilized that much in a passing game. So I can't see him making that big of an impact right away on that aspect of the game. But in terms of big playability, he brings it.
Shayne, what have you seen about him, and do you have any concerns regarding his pass protection? Because although it looked like he got better at that during the season, one of the reasons he didn't play much his early career at Notre Dame was because of pass protection issues.
I think the want to was a big part of it with him. I think he wanted to, but like I said, I think with that, we saw that with almost every back that comes in. They all want to do it. even, you go to a tight end like Greg Olsen. I remember the day that he was drafted, I was a big fan of Greg Olsen, but they're like, this kid he's not even trying to block out there. But that's something that they can get better at with experience. So my biggest thing with Dexter Williams is, like I referred to you guys before, one of the things that I put down is ball security that I put the star next to. I think that there was one fumble that he had in like 250 plus touches, and that's a huge deal. But I was disappointed. He seemed like he went down to me on initial contact way too much for my liking, just on simple arm tackles. And, we'll refer to it again, that 3rd and 1 play with Jordan Howard where they just got his feet and boom, he was down. And you see that size with him, and you want to see him go through that, not succumb to it. Mm-hmm. And I've never been known as a Notre Dame lover. I think everybody that's listened to me knows that, but I'm not going to hold that against him. But he's got those explosive traits, but there's just the first contact really, really bothered me, and that was something that stuck out with me. And there was some times in the open field where he did make some guys miss, but when I was initially watching him, he just seems like he's got the frame. And when he is explosive, you're expecting him to do that all the time, every time. And I didn't see it every time. Mm-hmm. And that was something that bothered me. People keep on bringing up the off-the-field stuff and with the weed, and I don't care about that. And I don't think any of these GMs or scouts or any of these guys care about these guys are kids, and they're on their own for the first time in their lives, and they're the BMOC on every campus, and that I think that they look at these guys that don't get a little bit of, have a little bit of fun like that. Like maybe they're the ones that worry them just a little bit. But he's got the acceleration that I like. I just wanted to see more in the, he's never going to be your workhorse guy. I just want to see him break some more tackles where he's going to give you those chunk plays. I don't know if Danny agrees with me or not, but I'm just telling you what I saw.
I mean, I saw him run through arm tackles. I think he had decent contact power and balance to get through those yards after contact. I see him move piles. Yeah. The one thing with him, though, is, and some of the negatives I put down about him, is he tends to get upright. He tends to elevate his pad level, and then he gets hit, and his momentum gets stopped right there. So, and then the other thing was, I think this might be something you might be alluding to here, Shayne, is he tends to slow down his play speed because he doesn't trust his eyes.
Right.
So instead of hitting the hole with the aggressiveness and the authority that he does, 2-3 plays earlier, when he gets a little tentative, doesn't trust his eyes, he kind of slows down, and then he gets taken down easily. I think that's what you might have been referring to. But in terms of being able to break tackles in the open field, I've seen him move piles, keep his legs churning. I've seen him break arm tackles and so on and so forth. When he gets going, he's hard to bring down. But when he doesn't trust his eyes and he lets his play speed slow down because he's not sure of what he wants to do, I think that's when he gets those easy tackles. So I think that might have been what you're alluding to.
Do you think that gets better at the next level, where everybody's bigger, faster, stronger? Because I question that if it does get better.
That's the thing. It's like we're just looking at a game or two here, and I see that. But then I see other times where he's confident, he's running with authority. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if is it because someone missed our blocks in terms of a tight end or an offensive lineman, and the play was supposed to go this way, and he just freaked out, or he saw that the line shifted, the defensive line shifted prior to the snap, to his side of the run, and he's trying to kind of overthink the run and try to figure out how he's going to get away from that. I'm not sure, and it's just we can all go off by what we see on tape, but it's something that I think could be coached out of him. Especially with a good running backs coach and an offensive line coach like Harry Heastan, who by the way knows him, and so he can probably attest to what kind of player he is as well. So if I think that's something that could be coached out of him. I didn't see it often, but I did see it at times where I did see him kind of hesitate and, like I said, just go down easily. And more so, I don't want to say the word confused, but it kind of looked like he was confused as to why he was going this way or why the defender was there when he shouldn't have been there. I don't know. We'll see. But in terms of him being able to break tackles and have that contact balance, that contact power to run through those arm tackles, I saw some of that on tape too.
Yeah, and one thing that I have down here on my list as I'm looking, and I guess I should have brought it up when I was speaking on him initially, was on a lot of his long runs where he busted them off. I found myself running them back to watch. He's untouched. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Stanford game. The Stanford game, he had a couple of real long runs where he was pretty much untouched. You're right.
Yeah, and that's people see that, like I said, that aren't Danny. You were talking about watching tape with your son, and a lot of people see that and they're like, oh, you just busted off this 62-yarder. Yes, Nagy wants these big plays. Well, nobody touched him. You know what I mean? And you see that more often in college ball than you do in the NFL, obviously. But it's just a couple of the little notes that I saw on him. I want my guy that they're going to draft. I want them to be able to have the ability, if needed, where they can hand the ball off to the guy to get you the tough yards all the time. And I could be completely wrong. I'm not sold that Dexter Williams can give us that. He is going to be part of a committee, and that's a benefit there. But I want him to have the ability to be able to do that. If they're going to invest, let's be honest, 3rd and 4th round, yeah, we don't have the 1st and 2nd rounders. These aren't chump picks.
No,
these are extremely valuable picks. And they're going to be a big part of this offense, whoever they bring in, if they go offense. But he's, to me, the red flags off the field don't bother me. I was more concerned on some of the stuff that I saw on the field.
Yeah, I'd be surprised, actually, if he goes in the 3rd, 4th, or even 5th round. I see him more as a 6th or 7th rounder because of some of the on-field concerns, but also some of the off-the-field concerns. So that might get him to drop and be a really good value pick in round 6 or 7. Trayveon Williams, Texas A&M.
Another Trayveon Williams first down and plenty more. Blocking downfield from Osborne. Trayveon Williams takes it inside the 20, and he'll take it to the end zone. 73 yards.
Here's your man, Trayveon Williams. A lot of people have been talking about him lately on social media. I see his name come up a lot in association with the Bears. Danny, what do you think about this back? Yeah,
this is of this 5. This is my personal favorite. I think this guy is a perfect fit for what we've been talking about. We're talking about a guy who's got the big playability. The guy who can come out of the backfield, make plays out of the backfield in terms of the passing game. The guy's got the elusiveness. The guy's can make guys miss at the line of scrimmage. His vision. I tweeted out a play. His vision and patience. It kind of reminds me of Le'Veon Bell in a way, where he allows his blockers to set up. And he'll run off of his blockers. He really took off this past season when Jimbo Fisher came in and installed a pro-style system, and he even mentioned that with a fullback in front of him, that really helped him. So the negatives with him obviously is going to go back to size. He's 5'8", 206 pounds, but this kid's a 2-year starter. He's a bulldog in terms of toughness. He's a guy that will run in between the tackles, but yet he will can easily bounce it to the outside. Like I talked about, his burst and acceleration to get through the line of scrimmage and to reach his top end speed is phenomenal. The vision to see the cutback lanes, and we talked about in terms of his patience. And I think he would on those zone blocks, the stretch zone or even the inside zone runs. I think this is where this kid excels.
Number one thing that I have down on here with Trayveon Williams is his hands. I think he's got wide receiver-like soft hands. It's a huge deal in this offense. Another guy, Danny pointed out his size limitations, but he's another guy that's not afraid to stick his head up in there and do the dirty work. I'm a Trayveon Williams fan. 100%. I think he, like Danny said, I think he is a perfect fit for what Nagy wants to do. And even with his smaller size, I still think he is a guy that you can hand the ball off to that isn't afraid to go up there and get you he's 5'9", but he's not, when you think of those guys, you hear 5'9", 5'8", you think that these guys are going to be real small and diminutive, but he's got that stocky build to him. He's not stocky like Maurice Jones-Drew at UCLA, but he's got that similar, thickness to him where I think he is a guy that you can rely on to grind out some of those tough yards. And, you want him to be slippery when he gets in there, where he can get off, get out of the garbage and bust off these plays. And I see a lot of that with Trayveon Williams. And he was a guy that I had a problem keeping off my list of 5 when I did mine. I was trying to find a way to put him in there. I just liked my 5 guys better. He was almost there, but he was just on the outside looking in. Contact, he's a guy, you want that balance. With him being a shorter guy, he's got that balance that's going to keep him on his feet, and he's a guy that can get going again for you and get those yards. And that's something that's very, very underrated, because it doesn't matter how fast you are or how elusive you are. There's always, bigger, faster, stronger league. You're going to get hit, and you're going to get caught from behind. I mean, Tariq Cohen gets caught by people, and Trayveon Williams is no different, but they have to maintain those feet. So you count me as a fan, absolutely.
His change of direction is just seamless. I mean, he can just literally just go from. I mean, it's like I would rewind him, like he just changed the directions, and I didn't even notice it. He doesn't slow down. You don't see the pitter-pattering of his feet. I mean, just seamless change of direction. That just goes to show you that the lateral agility, the quick feet, and the loose hips that he has to be able to do that in tight quarters. So this guy can run in between the tackles, which is something that's key for all these running backs. I found predominantly all these running backs can all run between the tackles, which is very, very important, especially if you're running an inside zone scheme or any type of zone scheme.
Danny, there's a report, I think it's in Lindy's, that says he really benefited in his last year in college from playing with a fullback for the first time in his collegiate career. Do you have any concerns that coming to the Bears and not having a fullback in many formations might be a hindrance to him?
No, because in his freshman year, actually his first 2 seasons, he played in the hybrid spread system at Texas A&M, and he did just fine. I mean, he averaged 6.8 yards a carry as a freshman. I think he, as I mentioned earlier, Jimbo Fisher coming in and installing a pro-style system did benefit him, and I agree. I think he even said, and was quoted saying that he really benefited from having a fullback in front of him. And we've seen Nagy, although they do a lot of shotgun, runs out of shotgun. He has lined up, our running backs in the I formation with a fullback in front of him and handing the ball off. So, I could see them using some of that in variations here, but I have no qualms or issues utilizing Williams in a shotgun formation either.
And Trayveon Williams did tweet out that he doesn't want to play with Mike Burton. So
I like him already.
He's a perfect fit.
Benny Snell Jr., Kentucky.
And into the belly of Benny. Snell breaking free inside the 10. Touchdown.
Danny, you told me before we started recording that a lot of people are questioning your pick of Benny Snell, or your assessment of his playing. Tell us a little bit about that, and then give us your scouting report on Snell and why you like him.
Yeah, the biggest thing with him was what I got back feedback was, all right, this is Jordan Howard 2.0, and in a way, how do I describe this? All right, so everything I've been saying for the past hour or two and since mid to late last season about the type of running back the Bears need, the home run hitting speed, the ability to catch out of the backfield, you can kind of throw it out with Benny Snell. But what I like about him, and I harken back to our interview with Greg Gabriel, a true good running back is not necessarily measured by his 40 time. A true good running back is measured by his ability to run in between the tackles, to get those tough yards, to be able to be shifty, to be able to get yards after contact. And that's all that Benny Snell does. I mean, this kid playing in one of the, in my opinion, the best conference in college football, the SEC, put up numbers year after year after year, okay? And, he started, just rolling off some of his stats here. He started 27 of 39 career games, including his last 26 straight. So he's durable, okay? And this is a kid that, takes a pounding every time. He's had over 700 carries in his career and made 26 straight starts. He's broken or tied 14 school records, all right? He's got the school record for career rushing yards with over 3,800 yards, career rushing touchdowns with 48, and he has over 19 100-yard games. So, and a team captain. So this kid not only is a leader, but he's very productive in one of the most competitive or highly talented conferences in college football. And what he does is he's big at 5'10", 224 pounds, but he's got that outside bounce. Not only can he be effective in between the tackles, for a guy that's quick or this big, he's got that quickness to be able to bounce it. And that surprised me because I expected more of a one-cut downhill runner. So this is where he's different from Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard is more of that one-cut downhill runner. This kid can bounce it to the outside, but he makes his money in between the tackles. But if he has to, he can bounce to the outside. And like I said, that yard after contact, he will carry defenders. It takes more than one guy to bring him down. Shane, I think you might agree with me here. This is not a guy that's going to fall with arm tackles. This is a guy that needs to be gang tackled.
Yeah, and you bring up Jordan Howard, and that's the name that I have written down here. But I do agree with the lateral agility. It was a little surprising to watch with a guy that's built the way that he is, and his ability to bounce at Danny. That was another thing that I did write down in my notes here. It kind of, you almost had to go back and watch it again to be like, wow, is that really Snell that's in there? But I wonder. I do question his hands. He's a guy that had 25 or 30 receptions in college.
29,
yeah, 29. I knew it was right in that range. And where they're going to pick him up, I'm not so sure. It's other than he does have the ability a little bit more lateral burst like we were talking about, but it's going to come down to, do they feel comfortable throwing him the football? And if they don't, if they're not comfortable with that, I just don't know if they're going to. It's essentially replacing Jordan Howard with a guy that's got a little bit more lateral agility. I think that they're just looking for somebody that's explosive, but also has the ability to be almost like a receiver if they put him out. And I don't think that Benny Snell is that guy overall. Is he a guy that you can pound the rock with, that can win you football games? Absolutely. I think he absolutely is. But I'm not sure that he's the exact type that Matt Nagy is looking for. I mean, you look at Matt Nagy when he was in Kansas City, they had two running backs, both that were drafted in the third round, in Jamal Charles and Kareem Hunt. And here the Bears we're talking about what they're going to do in the third round potentially at running back. And, if he's a guy that you can get a little bit later, I'm just not sure if Benny Snell is going to fit the bill of exactly what Matt Nagy wants to put into this offense, because I do see a lot of Jordan Howard in him myself.
I agree in terms of fit, and like I said earlier, whatever I've been saying for the past months, whatever, in terms of the kind of running back they want, he doesn't fit that. But when I just watch his tape and I watch the ability to bounce it outside, I watch his effectiveness to run in between the tackles, his swivel hips to be able to change directions for a guy who's 224 pounds playing in the SEC again. I keep going back to that, but I think that's that's the best conference in college football, and he kept putting up the numbers. Yes, he wasn't used a lot in the passing game. He only got, I think, 17 receptions. So, but the couple of passes I did see him catch out of the backfield, he had to kind of extend and reach away from his body, and he hauled it in. So you can only go by what he was given, the opportunities he was given. And if he wasn't throwing the ball, more than 17 times, that's all we can do. Again, going back to what you had said last week in terms of who do you have around them. Everyone, focused on Benny Snell on this offense. I think he had a second or a freshman or a redshirt freshman quarterback playing this year for him. So he was pretty much their offense, and yet, game after game, he was producing for them. So yes, I agree. Is he the fit that we've been talking about in terms of what this coaching staff wants, the type of player, the profile? No, but I just saw the ability as a running back, as a pure running back, and in between a tackle guy who can get you those tough yards, get you those yards after contact, And I just said, this guy's too good to just to ignore. So that's why I looped him in here.
I agree with that sentiment for sure, Danny. And I guess my biggest thing that I took away from this is I'll bring up Alexander Mattison again. You know, you talk about the bigger guys that can get you the tough yards. Both, Snell and Mattison can both do that. I just saw a better receiver out of the backfield in Mattison, and that's something that pushed him. Yeah, yes. That was something that pushed him up, because if you're going to go with the bigger back, and I'm not going to be surprised if that's maybe the route that the Bears go. They may go with a guy that's a little bit, could be just a little bit slower than we expect, but gives you the ability to make plays in both the run and the passing game. And that's really what separated Mattison by a pretty wide margin for me over a guy like Snell.
Right, and I agree. Mattison is a better pass catcher right now out of the backfield. But my only thing is, I think, in my opinion, I think Snell's a better running back in terms of just a running back.
Overall,
yeah. And he played in a much tougher conference, and he produced. And that's why I gave him the slight edge over Mattison. Now, but I take nothing away from Mattison. I think he is. I think he is going to be a back that's going to be in consideration. But just looking at him and knowing that Snell is not what we've been thinking or we've been imagining what Nagy wants in this offense at running back, it was just too damn good to leave off the list. I'm like, I just got to put him in there because he was just so damn good. And like I said, I keep going back to this, but I mean, he played some of the best athletes in college football, and he kept producing, and he was a focal point of that Kentucky offense. He was a guy that other teams' defenses were going to look to stop, but he kept producing game in and game out. So to me, that carries a lot of weight in my book.
Yeah, I agree there. And I think one thing that's just important to keep in mind is looking at all of these running backs when you're thinking about Matt Nagy, when in doubt, go with the guy that gives you more versatility overall. And I think that's probably where the Bears are going to go, with a guy like that, instead of the guy that's just a little bit more one-dimensional. Is there upside there for Snell? Absolutely. I think that there's still upside there in the passing game. But, that versatility is going to be a huge part. He wants to put 3 or 4 running backs out there, and he wants to be able to do anything in his playbook. I think a guy like Mattison gives you initially, like you said, more of a chance to do that right now than a guy like Benny Snell does.
I was going to say that he does seem to me, and I haven't looked at the tape nearly as much as you guys have, but just from what I've read and a few highlights that I've seen, he does really look like another Jordan Howard to me. And so the big question is does he have the initial burst? Is his initial burst better than Jordan Howard? Because I think that's one of the things that Nagy didn't particularly like about Jordan Howard, that he didn't get to the hole as quickly as he probably would have liked and likes to see out of his running backs.
I think he is. I think his peripheral vision, his peripheral run vision is better than Jordan Howard. I mean, he sees the outside opening up, and he bounces, like we mentioned earlier, bounces out there really quick, especially for a guy 224 pounds. The ability to make guys miss at the line of scrimmage, again, I keep harkening back to his size, to me impressed me. And the fact, guys, he's a mean, tough SOB runner. He will lay a hit on a defender, and he'll get up and get in his face. And I love that in my running back. So again, I didn't go into this, his film thinking he's going to be one of my 5. Mm-hmm. But man, after watching his tape, I was like, I just couldn't. Even though I know it wasn't a fit, I know it wasn't a fit, and it's not a fit. But I just couldn't leave him off my list.
I think he's definitely got better burst than Jordan Howard does.
Yeah. Yep. I think his vision too is good.
Yeah. The thing that I've found though is when, like you said, Danny, he's got that vision, but when it came time sometimes for him to make the move that he knew he had to make, sometimes he throttled down so much it was almost like and sometimes it was almost like he came to a dead stop with some of his moves. And I mean, he took some big hits watching him. With and that's something that you have to project to the next level, because I mean, if that's happening to you, yes, in the SEC, well, this is the SEC plus in the NFL, where everybody's bigger, faster, stronger. But I do think that there's upside there, absolutely.
Yeah, but he's got those swivel hips where he can make people miss in the hole, which is, again, I keep going back to this, but he's 224 pounds,
Yeah.
And you don't think he could do that. And that's what kind of got me. I'm like, dude, he just did that? And I rewound it. I even tweeted it out, the play where he looks like he's skiing. I mean, that's how his hips swivel, left and right, and he bounces in and out of a hole. And that really, really impressed me. But, yeah, I mean, I think his burst is better than Howard. I think his outside peripheral vision is better than Howard. And I think, getting through the line of scrimmage is good. But, so, yeah, is he, like I said, the perfect match? No, but he's just a damn good football player, and I just had to add him on this list.
So out of the 10 running backs that were selected, 5 by Shayne and 5 by Danny, let's try to put them in order so that if we're in the draft room, I want to hear you guys kind of put them in order. So if Darrell Henderson is available, is he at the top of this list of the 10 guys that have been identified over the last 2 years, two shows? And just to remind people, the 5 that Shayne selected were Alexander Madison, Damian Harris, Devine Ozigbo, Devin Singletary, and Darrell Henderson. Is Henderson clearly the number 1 guy?
It's close, but I think it's either Trayveon Williams or Darrell Henderson amongst those 10. Shayne, what do you think?
This is probably going to surprise you a little bit, though. I don't know why. I just feel like Damian Harris is going to be in this equation for Chicago. I think that there's a lot of I know it's kind of crazy to talk about when you're talking about guys like Jordan Howard, but I just think that there's more there. I think he's a much, much better receiver, and I think I know a lot of people disagree with me. I know Greg Gabriel does. I like Damian Harris better than I like Jacobs overall, projecting into the NFL. There's not a lot of people out there that are going to be riding shotgun with me on that. Mm-hmm. But myself, projecting what the Bears want, I think Danny's probably right. I think Darrell Henderson, to me, would be the top guy on there. I think Trayveon Williams is right there, but I think a sneaky guy is going to be Damian Harris. That could be somebody that's really a guy that we haven't heard connected to the Bears too awful much. I think that they did talk to him a couple of different times, but that's one of my gut predictions there, Aldo, that I'm so famous for here at the Barroom. Mm-hmm. And I don't throw those things around too lightly because overall I'm a big Alabama fan, but I've never been a guy. I know a lot of people killed me last year with Minka Fitzpatrick and just was never, I don't go overboard with my love for Alabama players at the NFL. I have that feeling about this kid and Damian Harris, and I think he's going to be somebody that's in consideration in the 3rd or 4th round for Chicago. But I would put Darrell Henderson number 1.
Danny,
absolutely.
Speaking of Jacobs, I haven't broken him down as extensively because I know the Bears have no chance at him. But I don't see the love. I mean, I should take it back. I see what people like about it, the athleticism, the ability to catch out of the backfield, the power. But this guy hasn't had over 700 yards in his career, and right. The fact that he's being touted as this can't miss running back. I mean, I don't know. I kind of pumped the brakes on him. But yeah, I like Harris a lot, Damian Harris a lot. I just think that, again, going back to what we were talking about in terms of, making miss ability, the speed to take it all the way. I think Henderson and Trayveon Williams of this 10 give them that option. And actually, just to go back real quick, I think, Shayne, we've nailed it, to be honest with you. I think I think the Bears are going to draft one of these 10 running backs. Maybe not Benny Snell, but that's more my guy there. But I think one of these running backs will get drafted by the Bears. I have a good feeling about that.
I would put money on that, absolutely. And then one more guy that I'm not going to count out is Ozigbo. Everybody knows, we're talking about Mitch and, and these guys that, guys like Nichols that are going to be taking a year 2 jump. That's true for a guy like LJ Collier taking the year 2 jump, even though it's into the NFL. You look at a guy like Ozigbo, who finally got his chance at Nebraska under Coach Frost, and he's another guy that I like, that I think could come in and make an instant impact at this level.
Well, I'm glad you brought up LJ Collier because we're about to get him on the phone right now.
Hello?
LJ Collier?
Yes, who am I speaking with?
You are speaking with Aldo Gandia of Bears Barroom, and along with me are Danny Shimon and Shayne Marsaw. Say hi to LJ Collier, guys.
Hey, LJ. Thanks for coming on with us.
What's up, LJ?
What's up, guys?
LJ, I got to tell you something. For the 5 minutes we've been preparing to call you here, Shayne and Danny have been talking about you like you were, the second coming of Lawrence Taylor or somebody like that. These guys have been studying.
I don't know about all that.
These guys have been studying your film, and they're super, super impressed. So again, like Shayne said, thanks a lot for being on with us. We've got a lot of questions to ask you about your collegiate career, about your preparation for the draft, and what your expectations are for your NFL career. But first and foremost, how are you and how are your loved ones?
I'm good, and everybody's good back home. My girlfriend's good, my family's good. I'm just really taking all this in, trying to be humble and enjoying the time I have right now.
Sounds good. I'm going to turn it over to Danny Shimon, who's one of our scout analysts here. He's the one that's been leading the parade here, shouting out your excellence on the football field. Danny, take it away.
I was studying your tape, or actually, I should take it back. Last year, I was studying some of your teammates' tapes, and this number 91 kept popping up for me. I'm like, man, who's this 91 kid? This kid, LJ Collier. And then, lo and behold, I go down to the Senior Bowl and this year, and you were, in my opinion, I tabbed you one of my silent assassins because you were killing it down in Mobile, but I didn't think you were getting enough pub for it. So, I mean, I would watch you week in and week out, or play in and play out during every practice, and you're just, whether it's Dalton Reisner or whoever the tackle you're going against, you were having a hell of a practice. So, and I know this was your first year starting for TCU, so how did you take this first year as a starter and then propel it to, down to Mobile, and then now where we're hearing your name and we're Benny from Notre to late first round, second round, how are you taking that and kind of roll that momentum all the way to now?
Just being humble. It's my first year starting. I just thought of it as playing every game like it's my last. You know how many games you have. I didn't know if I was going to go to the Senior Bowl, the Combine, any of that stuff. So I was just being humble with it, man. I just took it a game at a time, a day at a time, one day at a time, everything step by step, and just played every game like it's my last. And I just stayed humble, and God truly blessed me this year. And, everything's happening right where it's supposed to be, and I'm blessed to be in the position I'm in.
LJ, one of my favorite things that I watch with you, and I pointed this out to Danny and Aldo a few minutes ago, I write these things down, and your hand usage is just, I consider it right now just like one of your top traits. I mean, it's so fun to watch you play and the way that you're using your hands. And I know there's, some people say that maybe all the high-end athletic traits aren't there, but you can win, and you can win big in the NFL with elite hands. And I see that in you right now. How much of a focus has that been for you over this past year, just working on your hand usage?
It's been a big-time focus because if you have good hands, then everything else will come together with it. I agree. And but that's just a big focus, and it's going to be another focus when I get to the league to really work on my technique and just all my skills as a player and an all-around player, not just a pass rusher, an elite all-around guy. First and second down, play the run. You can't rush the passer until you play the run. So I'm going to really work on my overall game.
When I'm watching your tape, I noticed they have you playing as a three technique, playing some two gap, with your hand in the ground, but then also standing up in a 2-point stance and rushing on the edge. Which one do you feel, which position do you feel is best suited for you going forward, and which one do you think will give you the opportunity to be more successful in the NFL?
I for sure think I can play and be successful in the league, but I also think there's more guys that are faster than me and can, be more effective on the edge than I can. But I can kick down in the three technique and be effective with those guys, and we can have a mean rush. Third down rush with two. I can really rush with either one, but there's always going to be guys that can do it a little better. So I feel like I could kick down to the three technique or the nose and rush from there and help the team win if I have to.
Which one do you think you're better at? Is it standing up, or you just feel comfortable both ways, standing up and with your hand in the ground?
I really put my hand in the ground because, you can really get off when you just get in that 40 stance and just, you feel a little quicker out of that one.
LJ, when you are going through this process, I know you hear analysts like us, you come on here and I'm talking about how good I think that your hands are. But let's flip the page and go to the other side of the equation with this. What is something that you think that you really need to focus on, or what do you think in your game is not where you want it to be right now to make you feel 100% comfortable at this next level? What do you think is your biggest negative right now?
Just definitely, I guess my play recognition, things like that, and breaking down the man I'm going against. I know I break it down pretty well, but there's so much more I feel like I can learn, and just my run stop and all that stuff, the way I take on blocks and technique and things like that. It could definitely be a lot better, and I feel like I'm going to work on that at the next level. I'm definitely going to work on it. I want to be one of the best in the league, if not the best.
LJ, do you have a preference of playing a 3-4 or a 4-3?
Not at the moment. I'm really just taking it all by ear, and I'm really just willing to go wherever someone takes me. I'm trying to be humble with the situation.
The guys were talking about your performance at the Alamo Bowl, where you had 3 or 4 tackles and a sack. Can you recall that sack for us and just tell us what was going on in that play and kind of do a little play-by-play based on your memory of that sack?
One of my teammates that came off the field, I kind of just hopped out there. Really, I was out there for a play and made that sack, and I was having a great day with the bull rush. They weren't ready for it. They didn't prepare for it, and I just had a good get off, and man, I just popped him. And it was just a good play, and the quarterback didn't see me. Man, it was one of the best feelings ever. I just had how you have a dominating game. I just had a dominating game that day.
You are one rugged dude, man. you have your way with opponents, man.
We were talking about that play, LJ, where you were doubled, and going back to the Alamo Bowl, where you were double teamed. There was a run play, and you split the double team, and you tackled the running back for a loss. Man, that was impressive. That's one thing I tweeted out last night. I'm like, man, that's something that, your run defense, we talked about you being as a pass rusher and being able to, rush from, either a hand in the ground or standing up. But your ability to set the edge, to be effective as a run defender, I think is vitally important at the next level. And I think that's going to allow you to be able to get on the field quickly and be able to play right away because you're a well-rounded defender. You can play the edge, like I said, in terms of a pass rusher, but also you're a very good run defender.
LJ, I keep on referring to my yellow notepad when I'm watching you guys that are available in the draft, and one of the things that I wrote down next to your name is Jaws, because I see, you talk about you want to work on your play recognition, but it's something that I notice is when there was a bad pass set in front of you, it was like you could smell the blood. And you were ready to go, and you were, ready to attack. And Danny and I talked last night about who you reminded us of, and we agreed without, talking about it before. A guy like Pernell McPhee with that ferociousness, and a guy that can use the power and that wants to get after the quarterback. And Pernell, when he was here, used to talk about having that dog and, having that Jaws and junkyard mentality to get after the quarterback. Can you speak on that? Is that a big part of your game?
Oh, yeah, you got to be mean to play D-line. That's why I carry myself the way I do with the mentality that I'm going to run through you every time. You can stop it once, but it's going to keep coming. You're going to have to stop it. And I don't think very many people can stop my bull rush. That's just the way I feel, and it's one of my best traits.
LJ, I want to learn a little bit about your background. I understand that you grew up in Monday, Texas. It's a very small town, less than 2,000 people, one traffic light or two. Tell me a little bit about life there and what's it like now with that community, knowing that you have an opportunity to play in the NFL.
Growing up in Monday is great. Small town, there's not much to get into. So me and my cousins played a lot of football, a lot of basketball, stuff like that. And really just played a lot of sports, honestly. And it was just a great feeling, growing up two-parent household and all that stuff. And, I feel like every kid should grow up in the country because, there's freedom, there's not much to get into. And, just the overall, my town right now is just really, they're all in shock. And they're all just fighting for me, and, everybody's just excited for me to be in the opportunity I'm in. And it's just an unreal feeling because not very many people where I come from get to do stuff like this. it's truly an honor to be in the situation I'm in the position I'm in. And I'm gonna make it last as long as I can, and I'm gonna be humble. I'm gonna play hard. I'm gonna give it my all as long as I can.
And I understand your hometown was basically a Texas Tech town, but your success at TCU may have changed the feelings there, and perhaps now it's a TCU city, is that correct?
Oh yeah, everybody from my hometown does love Tech a lot, but some people have adopted a little bit of purple for me.
Cool. Tell us about your experience over at the NFL Combine.
It was a great experience. I loved it. I was trying to just stay humble the whole time and take it all in, because I could have been at home and not been there and wishing I was there. So that's one thing I took to mindset. I said enjoy the whole process, and that's what I did.
And did you get a chance to talk to people from the Chicago Bears organization? And if so, what was that conversation like?
It was a good conversation. I was on a visit there on Monday, and it was really well. I like the new facility and everything. I got to meet with all the coaches. It was just a great day, and I enjoyed it a lot. Getting to meet with the coaches, and I think they enjoyed me. We got on to talk a little board talk, stuff like that, with Coach Montecino, and it was just a good day overall. You talk to Coach Nagy, all those guys. It was a good day. I really had fun, and I enjoyed it.
Did you? Were there any players at Hallis Hall that you met up with?
No, I didn't see very many players in Chicago. It was just really just me and a few other guys that I can't remember their names. Those kind of just really focus on, making a good impression on Coach Pagano and Coach Nagy and all those guys, and trying to get my best impression that Ron pays too.
Give us an idea of what goes on when they ask you to go to the board. What are some of the things they're asking you to do at the board?
They cut on film and just run through, come to teach you players, just ask me what my technique is here, what's the play is, and just what I'm taught to do.
Excellent. Danny, Shayne, what do you got?
Hey, LJ, so high school you also played tight end, right?
Yeah, my freshman through junior year, I played tight end. My senior year, I played some running back, some receiver, stuff like that, and D tackle.
The reason I ask is because Nagy is known for taking defensive players and putting them on the offensive scheme. So, if you're on the Bears, man, you might be catching some passes as a tight end. So get ready. That's all I'm gonna let you know.
I'd be down for that. These hands are all day.
That's awesome.
LJ, you talk about growing up in the country, and I agree. I'm a country kid myself, but you have the potential here to come to the bright lights in the big city of Chicago, where it's they have the Cubs and the White Sox and the Bulls and the Blackhawks, but it doesn't matter what happens. It's always a Chicago Bears town. Are you prepared to how are you? How does that feel to you to go from the country to one of the biggest, potentially come to one of the biggest markets in the NFL?
I'm a homebody these days. I leave the outside noise alone. I like to stay at the crib. There's a time and a place to go out and do stuff like that. But I'm going there to play football, be locked in. Of course, I'm gonna make change of Bulls game from time to time. But other than the other outside noise and all that stuff, I'm not really focused on that. I'm there to come help the Bears win a championship and be the best player I can be. And that other stuff can come after I'm done playing. I'm really just there focused and trying to make the team and, show my teammates that I'm there to help them win, and that they're getting a complete player that, that's coming to help them, and he's serious about what he wants to do with the team.
LJ, who were some of the players you talk about growing up in Texas, and obviously that's a hotbed for college and the NFL, but who were some of the players that you focused on growing up to maybe pattern your game after?
Honestly, when I was in high school, I didn't pattern my game after much D-line. That was more college. I just enjoyed watching, just a good game in high school. When I got to college, it's more like I watched maybe, Phelon, Khalil Mack, Fletcher Cox, and guys that can really get off the ball. Chandler Jones, just guys who can really get off the ball. And there's too many to count in the NFL because everybody has a great pass rusher on their team. Everybody's talented. It's a talented league. So that's what I enjoy.
Hey, tell us a little bit about, I understand that the last several weeks you've been working out at a facility in Frisco called Exos. It's a training complex. You've been working out with some other potential draft picks. Tell us a little bit about what the routine is there.
Breakfast at 9. We do some speed work at 10 in the morning. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday we do position work at 11 to around 12:30. Then we have lunch, and then you hang out to about 3:30. And then at 3:30 we have another workout to about 3:30 to 4:30 or 5. And, you get let out. And that's pretty much from Monday to Friday. And then Saturday we have Big Bench Day. And Big Bench Day is just where you train for the 225 test.
And the word is that you're not afraid to work at all. You put in the hard work, huh?
I really do. I love lifting weights, and I just enjoy all that stuff. I mean, I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. I know when it's time to work, it's time to go to work.
And I noticed a few times during the course of this interview, you said that you like to stay humbled. That tells me that when you get onto the football field, you're a ferocious dude, man. No, your humility goes out the window, right?
Oh yeah, there's no time playing the games. It's a war zone. That's how I like to treat it.
Yeah, what he did to that Texas Tech, I think it was a redshirt freshman tackle in that game was pretty. I mean, it's like I had to turn tape off because I thought I was seeing an execution going on there, but it was pretty impressive. But question I ask LJ to all the pass rushers we talked to is, all right, you're in your first NFL game or you're in the NFL. Who is the quarterback you want to sack the most?
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Good answer.
Baker Mayfield, Tom Brady, big name guys. I'd love to get a piece of all of them, honestly.
Well, those are good answers, but the correct answer in order are Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
Hey, what are your plans for draft day? You have a party going on, or what's going on for draft day?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have a party. Gonna have some family over at my agent's house in Frisco, and we're gonna all chill out and see where we're gonna end up at.
So once you sign that contract and you get that money in the bank and stuff, what are you gonna do first to spend some money? What are you gonna spend it on?
First, I'm gonna save some before I think about any of that. But I haven't thought about it. Because when you grow up without money and stuff like that, you don't really think about it. Because you see a lot of guys blow their money. So I'm kind of just want to save as much as I can in a short amount of time while I can.
That's great. I know the NFL has a lot of programs that they advise players on how to manage their money and so forth. So it sounds like you're already off to a good start with taking a conservative approach and saving money. That's good.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
LJ, you have been a great – Danny, did you have one more question?
Before we're done, I just want to thank him again for coming on. We appreciate his time and the best of luck to, hopefully it's in Chicago, but if not, wherever you get drafted, like Shayne said earlier, we both are very, very much impressed with your ability and your tape, and we feel like you're going to be a very, very good NFL defensive either lineman, linebacker, or just defensive player in general. So thanks again for sharing some time with us tonight.
Oh, no, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you guys for the opportunity to get to talk to you guys tonight and just get on here and talk and just to tell my story and tell a little bit about myself. So I appreciate you guys for that.
Yeah, we're all big fans of yours, and don't forget us here at Bears Barroom when you're hoisting that Lombardi trophy with the Chicago Bears. We want to have you back on, okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, brother. Take care now.
Thanks, LJ.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, I love it when I know these guys are coached up and everything, but you hear this kid talking about being humble. It really comes across as honest. A lot of these guys talking about the money and the bright lights in the big cities. Like, no, I really prefer to stay home and do my own thing and, ball on the weekends. It's a good thing to hear.
Really Aldo made a great point. Like he's humble off the field, but on the field he's anything but humble. He's ferocious on the field. So I like that. I like that in a player when you get to know him. And again, like we've talked about this before. These the combine, the meetings when these guys, the teams get the first time to really sit down and talk to these guys face to face and get to know them. I was pleasantly not surprised because I heard that the Bears were going to have him in for a visit. But the fact that they brought him in, I was happy to hear that they brought him in and they put him on the board. And so you know that they're heavily contemplating, this kid. So not just a meeting, visit, get to know you kind of thing. They actually brought him in and put him on the board and put him through all the, he met everybody, basically all the coaching staff, and it sounded like he said the whole coaching staff, and Ryan Pace as well. So that's a good sign.
Ryan Pace is selling the new Hallis Hall already too. They don't draft this kid. That's real. This is a big poker game. Yes. You take advantage of these guys when they're in there. Look at this. Look at the new digs here. These guys know. Yep. They know what that's like. A lot of these guys, a guy like Eddie Jackson was coming from Alabama where it's Taj Mahal. They come to what they used to have, and he's like, what? This is the NFL? Are you kidding me? It's crazy. But no, these guys see this, and by, Aldo, we've seen some pictures, and it's pretty goddamn amazing.
It is.
It makes you feel really, really good about who we have in place and what we have going forward.
Yeah. And, Ryan Pace has said this before, that sometimes they want these players to see the facilities, and they want to talk to these players because they are eventually going to become free agents at one point in their career. And if they have good memories of their talks here, and the Bears have a positive feeling about the time they've spent with these players when they've had the opportunity to spend, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, that's just planting some seed for the future. And with this particular player, it is pretty amazing that some of the early publications that cover the draft had him going in the 7th round, and now we're hearing talk that he could potentially be a first rounder. So it's pretty amazing what's happened with his draft stock over the past several weeks.
Well, welcome to the NFL draft. That stuff happens.
That's crazy because I never had this kid going in the 7th. But I thought this kid was, worst case scenario, you're thinking, early day 3, 4th round, 5th round, something like that. But 7th round is kind of harsh. But again, he was, his backstory, he wasn't a starter up until this past season. This is his first year as a starter. He contributed. He was part of a rotation his previous 3 years. But this past year was where he was a full-time starter. And again, Shayne, as you can attest to this, he was doing a lot of two-gapping. They were playing him as a 5 technique. And a lot of times his first step was sideways. It wasn't upfield. When he was allowed to attack the gap, to go upfield, you just saw instant penetration, his ability to get skinny and get in between those offensive linemen and penetrate the gap. It was apparent on this kid's tape. And like I said earlier, he abused that freshman tackle from Texas Tech, the poor kid. So, this kid, Shayne and I both had, the same comparison, a healthy, I repeat, healthy Pernell McPhee. Not the injured one-legged Pernell McPhee, but a healthy Pernell McPhee, and a younger version of it, and a guy, like you just said, we heard him. He's humble off the field, but he's vicious. He's a dog on the field, and you add that to Mack and Floyd and Hicks and Roquan Smith, and I could keep going on and on.
Nichols,
and that's Nichols. It's just that's an exciting thought if you can add someone like this to that group.
This kid is not Jerron Gilbert, the last D lineman that one of the last guys we took in the.
Can he jump out of a pool? Well, that's the thing.
He can do that, but he can't play football.
Hey everybody, it's Aldo, and I hate to say this, but we had some problems with the first several minutes of Davon Muldrow's interview, and it's really unfortunate because he shared some very personal things about his upbringing that were really heart-rendering. Davon comes from a family of 5 siblings, and his mom was a single mom who just worked a couple of jobs around the clock to provide for them, and just, it was very, very tough for her and the family. At times they had to live in shelters. Fortunately for Davon, he discovered football and started playing football at the age of 12 or 13. This is what he shared with us during the portion of the interview that we lost here. But he discovered that, he was very good at football. And as a freshman, he won MVP, had 8 interceptions, a couple of touchdowns, and 80 tackles. He still struggled academically, though, because of the environment that he was in. And so he went the JUCO route. So he all of a sudden, things seem to look like they're going in Davon's favor, but unfortunately, bad luck strikes again. And this is about where he picks up the story as to why he had to leave college for a couple of years. And let me strongly stress, I am not doing a good job of telling his story like he did. The 3-4 minutes that we lost in the interview were just so compelling, and I wish I could get them back somehow, but unfortunately I can't. But don't be dismayed, because he's going to pick up the story here, and you will hear what Shayne and Danny and I heard, and that is a young man who has no quit in him. He's a fighter and a survivor, and it's a very compelling story. He'll pick it up from here.
Government housing, because she couldn't get a house, so I was just like, I'm pretty much done with football. I was like, I'm done with football. I'm going back to pretty much help my brother, help my mom, and everything like that. So when I went the JUCO route after that, I just went home and I stopped playing for like two years, and I just was helping my mom. And even then, it was still rough, because I could only do so much, and me being 19 and 20 years old, I only could do so much, and it was just it was still rough. So even when I went back, we was homeless. So then us being homeless and then me sitting out, and I was just like, okay, I gotta figure something out. I just can't be in this situation like this. I'm here for my family, but I also gotta pretty much do something so we ain't in this situation anymore. So my mom was just like, just go back and play football, because we had got an apartment. So she was like, just go back and play football, but schools wasn't trying to, pretty much my D1 clock was out, so schools wasn't trying to. It's like, oh, you sat out for 2 years, so we really not taking a chance on you. So I was just like, okay. And then one of my friends, Marshawn Lynch, brother, Devontae Lynch, he was here at New Mexico Highlands, and he was just like, you should talk to my coach, because I even though I went back home, I was still taking classes at a JUCO back home. So I was taking I was a half-time student, but still working at Macy's, and pretty much it was just me and my brother, because my mom, she was living with my uncle, but me and my brother, we was pretty much just sleeping in my car while I was going working at Macy's. And then when I would be at work, my brother would be in the car with his dog, and they would just pretty much go chill or do whatever until I got off work. And then it was just back and forth. I used to take showers at my uncle's house, but then I'll get back in my car and then sleep in my car or whatever. And I was doing that for about a year before I had hit my friend Devontae up, and then he was just like, you should contact the coach. And then I contacted the coach that was here, and he was just like, yeah, we'll give you a full ride scholarship. Well, it wasn't a full ride, it was a partial. And then I was like, okay, for sure. And he was like, when can you come down here? And it was pretty much in January. So I was like, oh, I'll be down there. I can come down there immediately. So I came down here, and the day I got here is the same day he got fired. So it was just wow. All right, it was wild. From there, it was just, for me, from him getting fired the day I got here, and then me meeting the new head coach, and you know how that go when you ain't if you're not a recruit for a new head coach, it's they kind of just put you on the back burner. So it was me having to prove myself. And even when I showed him on my film, it's it didn't matter. So then I had to pretty much fight to make the team, and then get a starting position. And even once I did that, it was still just rough. It was rough, being here with a new head coach, and I wasn't what he recruited.
So what did it take for you to earn this coach's confidence and get on the football field and prove that you were a player?
I mean, it was our DB coach. He isn't here anymore, because he just he pretty much turned in his papers, and he going to another school. But he when he seen my tape, and he was all I always play safety, because I just love contact, so I always play safety. And he was like, well, I want you to play corner. And I'm like, well, I never really played corner. And he was like, but I see you can be a dominant corner because you're physical at the line and you can read the plays. And I'm like, okay. So I started playing corner. I had to start in corner position. And then the head coach, he didn't like the way I cover or he just didn't like the way that I play corner. So he moved me back to safety. So I was like, I was fine with that because that's the position I wanted anyway. So I was playing safety, and then I made the team in the spring, but I didn't get a scholarship. So I'm like, all right, I'm not too worried about it. I was like, I'll just take out these loans and keep grinding until I get a scholarship. And then the fall camp came, and then I was starting safety. But like I said, when you're not the coach's recruit, he brought in more players that he recruited from his last university. And then my DB coach told me, like, well, we're going to go with these guys. And I'm like, okay, so I'll work for the position or whatever. And then one of the weeks when I finally was working, it was like a week before the first game. And I was like working to get that position back. And I had rolled my ankle. And when I rolled my ankle, I rolled it and I was out for like 3 weeks. And then I lost the starting position. And then from there, they moved me to like the rover, pretty much like a Sam backer. And then the head coach, he was just like I'm on the team and everything, but he was just like, he didn't think I can cover like receivers and everything. So I always even though I had his respect to make the team, I always had to work harder because I wasn't, like I said, I never got a scholarship. Even though I made the team, I made plays, never got a scholarship. So that was always like a chip on my shoulder just to keep grinding and going harder no matter what happened. And then from there, from me playing sandbacker, then as you've seen on the tape, I went to play D-line. And then I was playing, it was a position called cowboy. And they said it was like a sandbacker, but in reality, it was me playing the D-line. So I'm 5'10", 190 going against dudes 6'5".
We talked about that right before you came on with us.
And that was rough. Like I never played that. Like I got a whole different like respect level for like D linemen. Like me playing like DB and everything, I always thought D linemen, they didn't really have like a job. Like it was just like stuff to run. But it was totally different when I was down there. Like since I'm smaller, they used to just point me out like 29, get him. Like, and I'm just like, all right. Like I would laugh it off, but like they was coming at me and they was like I'm strong, but like they was like, I was like they warm up weight. Like they used to throw me around until I really learned the techniques, and then I just knew I could beat them with speed. So it was just like, let me just try to beat them with speed and not get touched. But like it was weird. I've never played D-line never. So it's just a weird experience me being here. But I still respect all the coaches for even just giving me the chance to be able to make plays. And I mean, I knew it was gonna hurt, like me trying to move forward to the next level, because it's like, okay, you play DB, but you don't really got a lot of DB film. It's like you're playing D-line. So I kind of took the approach, like I said before, of like Jabril Peppers when he was in the box and playing all these positions, but he never was playing his actual position. So my DB coach, he was upset with it. He was just like, I mean, it was just show that you're versatile, but I understand that you want to play what you want to play because I know that you know how to play that position. So it was just wild to me. It was really crazy. Like it was wild. That's all I can really say.
Hey, Davon, how this is obviously a different off season for you leading up to this whole entire draft process. How has that been for you? You know, with your focus here towards the end of April, and who have you talked to in terms of teams? Have you been on any visits and workouts and stuff like that?
Yeah. So my agent, I had a pro day, and then at New Mexico State, and I talked to the Lions, and then I had position drills with the Niners, and then my agent, he got me the local pro day for the Niners. So I know I'm doing that in a couple of weeks. April 17th, I'll be in California, in Santa Clara, doing that with the Niners. We're still trying to work with the Raiders, and then we're trying to get in contact with one of the coaches one of the scouts from the Lions, because he knew me from the bowl game that I played in Florida. So he just came up to me and he was like, "Hey, are you Davon? I talked to a coach about you last night. I'm like pretty much be like watching you and everything. He told me you was a dog and everything like that." So I'm like, "All right, that's cool and everything." So he was just saying that they was going to keep in touch. So my agent is trying to get in contact with them now. So that's that. And then just me with this whole process, I just been like, I mean, I enjoy it. I train every day, lift every day. So it's not really like, this is what I like to do. So it's not really like me, like, it's not stressful to me. Like, it's like, I'm not really like stressed about the whole process. Like even the pro day, I couldn't wait. I just wanted to run fast. Like that's all. I was just so focused on running fast, because it's like me playing DB, but me playing the D line, I really couldn't show how fast I was. Like people knew I was fast, but I was just like, as long as I run in like the 4.4, I was aiming for a 4.3. Some people said they got me at a 4.3, but I remember the Lion scout, he said he got it at a 4.4. So I'm fine with anyone, but I really was aiming for a 4.3. But I just wanted to show that I could run fast, and me not having the film of me being able to really cover receivers besides my the All-Star game, the bowl game. That was the only time I really got to show like I can cover slots or anything I need to cover. I'm pretty much used to covering like slots or corner, or receivers from playing corner. So it really wasn't like hard to me, but it's like I'm saying, I didn't get to play that position during the season. So, I mean, how I would feel, scouts would look at it like, okay, I understand. I could see him. He can play nickel or corner or including safety, but he just don't got a lot of film on him. So I just was practicing this whole off season. I just been practicing just a lot of DB drills, just nonstop DB drills, just ladder drills, just DB drills in general, knowing the schemes of switching from nickel to corner to playing safety, single high or strong safety. It didn't really matter to me. I just kept practicing. That's all I do is practice each position, because I don't know what position I play. So I pretty much know all the positions, though. Like
that's smart though. Versatility counts in this league, Davon. Absolutely. And you talk about a guy near and dear to our heart right here from that left Chicago in Bryce Callahan. He went the undrafted undrafted free agent route, and he was a smaller guy, but he proved versatile. And he had that speed, and he had that little bit of dog in him, that work ethic, and now he's reaping the rewards now out in Denver with that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I was watching your tape, Davon, and like I said, I'm like, man, this guy's 5'11", playing up at the line. I'm like, what's going on here? But but the 4.4, I saw your workout tape, and that was the 4.4, and I did see you in the drills, and you look smooth in your back pedal. You look like you have a quick transition out of your back pedal, so you got the foot quickness and the ability to come downhill quickly. So, and I think you've already showed you have the toughness and the desire and the football character. So, I think you have a pretty good chance there, my friend. So, I think you're doing very well for yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That as Shane was saying, that hybrid position, I mean, you played the edge, you played the slot corner, you played the safety position. That is so in demand now in the NFL. Do you see that kind of a role for you in the NFL, or do you think, you might just kind of play more exclusively at the safety position?
I feel like I play more hybrid. Like I'm super comfortable playing that position, like playing the nickel or just playing close to the box. I can pretty much, I read plays super fast. Like I can get a feel for a play super fast, like where the ball is going. Like, 'cause I'm just like, I know I'm patient when it comes to guarding receivers, but I'm also aggressive at the same time. So I'll know just by, I mean, even alignment or how the receiver stance is, if he really gonna come at me like full 100%, or if it's a run. I like to pay attention, film study. I like to pay attention to a lot of that. So with me playing the nickel or just playing what we called it rover or the cowboy position, it's just like it's home to me really. Like I'm not nervous. I've been playing it for pretty much 2 years now. So when I first played it, I mean, I was closer to the box, so I really couldn't, in my eyes, I really couldn't come down and hit how hard I wanted to hit because I'm already so close to the line. So I really couldn't show how hard I wanted to hit somebody. But, I mean, I'm still fine with it. Like, I'll still make plays wherever I'm at on the field. But overall, I feel like to the next level, that's the position I play. It's pretty much like a nickel, the nickel role for sure.
Hey, I'm interested in, you mentioned earlier that your agent was sending your tape around. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about that. Clearly, you know, with so many men coming out of college and going to the pros, some scouts, some teams overlook people who have the potential and the capabilities of playing in the NFL. So is that something that an agent does for a player, is send tape out to teams? And what can you share with us about that?
Yeah, that's pretty much can't speak for everybody's, but I know my agent, he does that for sure. Like when he spoke to the Niners, he was just like, what did he say to me? He was just pretty much saying like, oh, I got you the invite. I'm going to keep shopping you around to teams and just pretty much letting them know about you and seeing your tape. And he was like, because at first when we first met, he was just like, send me everything you got. And I sent him everything, and then he was like, okay, I'm going to just start. It was pretty much like right after the pro day. I mean, he was like, all right, I'm going to send this out to everybody, and pretty much just like the people that he knew. He was just like, I'm going to send this out and just go from there, and I'm going to just start working. He was like, we just pretty much got to put in hard work. Me coming from a D2, and it's a smaller D2, he was like, I can't promise you anything, but nothing but hard work. And I was like, all right, let's go. Like, I mean, I've always been the underdog anyway, so I'm not, like, me having to work harder or whatever, I'm not really, like, it doesn't, like, make me nervous or stress me out. So I was just like, all right, let's go. And I was more so, like, I was with him because, like, me coming from a smaller school, a lot of agents that I talked to, they was just like, I don't, like, I really, like, I got a sense of, like, if I got something to offer them, like, then it's like, okay, but me coming from a smaller school, I feel like a lot of agents like overlooked it because it's like harder work because I'm coming from a Division II school and it's a smaller Division II school, even though like the RMAC is like a good conference in Division II. It's just like New Mexico Highlands is the smaller school in the RMAC. So I knew that kind of like scared a lot of people away, but he wasn't scared at all. He was just like, let's go. Like, and I respected him for that. So when I knew I had him behind me and pushing for me, I was like, all right, like whatever I got to do, I'm going to do it. Like if I got to go harder, I'm going to just go harder. Like, because I know he looking out for me and my best interest. So I respect that a lot. So he just constantly just worked for me. So I respect that 100%.
Yeah. And I saw,
I'm sorry, Aldo.
No, go ahead, Danny.
Knowing the situation, you're probably going to have to maybe make the team off of as a special teamer. Do you have that background?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
On special teams?
Like that's what, when I was in JUCO, like I played kickoff and I was, second. I was the second leg on kickoff. Well, pretty much the number two, that's what I'm pretty much trying to say. But I pretty much made the most tackles on kickoff. Like it was me and another guy, but everybody knew, like, when I'm on kickoff, I pride on being the first one to make the tackle. Like, I'm breaking the wedge, all of that. Like, even if I was at gunner, I just don't feel like now, me going against bigger dudes, like, now that I go against somebody my size, I feel like nobody can really, like, guard me my size because I'm so used to going against stronger people. Now that I'm going against people my size, like, even before then, like, I just don't, like, I don't like getting blocked. Like, so I'm not gonna let nobody like put their hands on me to even block me. That's why, like, on kickoff, I made a lot of tackles on kickoff on my my JUCO tape. But when I was here, they didn't really let me play kickoff. They only let me play kickoff a few games, and I was kind of like mad about that because I wanted to play kickoff. So they really didn't let me play kickoff here. But I'm like sure I will have to make a team by special teams, and I'm 100% fine with that too, because if that's the route I got to go to get on the field, then that's the route I got to go. Because I know I'm a dog when it comes to special teams in general, so I want to make the tackle anyway. I used to tell my teammates, like, who going to be the first one to come down here and make the tackle, who going to beat me. So I know for a fact if that's the route I got to go to make a team, so be it, I'm ready for it.
If you want to be extra versatile, is there any way, can you kick field goals? We need a field goal kicker here in Chicago too, Davon.
I play punter.
Yeah,
I play
do any of it.
Yeah, I'll play whatever. I really wish I would have played, like, well, if they would have let me go both ways, I really wish I would have played running back as well, because I played, like, in high school, I played running back pretty good. And even, like, now, like, even when I was, like, here, I would be, like, the scout running back for our starting defense. And, like, I would destroy him. Like, it was crazy. Like, I got film me running against our starting defense, like, killing him. So sometimes I'll be like, dang, I wish I would have kept playing running back. But I just know, like, coming from a Division II school, it was kind of like a business choice for me to play defense over offense, because running back at a Division II school, it's like, all right, he played running back, but I feel like I would have got kind of like overlooked because I'm playing running back in a Division II school, and it's like a passing league now. So I was just making a business decision, like, all right, I'm gonna just go play DB, like, I'm gonna just play that. So
you see all these big bags of money that the DBs are getting in the NFL. I think you made a wise choice staying over there.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Well, it's interesting too that I'm surprised that the Bears have not talked to you yet, because to me, and looking at the little bit of tape that I've seen of yours, learning about your story, knowing about your versatility, and now you're sharing with us that you ran running back in high school and have experienced that. You seem so tailored for the Chicago Bears, because they want speed in their defensive backfield, because they want versatility in their defensive backfield, because a lot of times Matt Nagy, the head coach, uses defenders on the offense to mix things up. And so, I got a feeling that you might get a call from the Chicago Bears after this interview goes viral tomorrow on our podcast.
That'll be a blessing, man. That'll be a blessing for real. I'm ready for whatever, man, but that'll be a real blessing for real.
Hey, I saw this interview with Marty Fine, the head coach there, and this was about, I guess it was before the start of the season, and he was talking about the prospects for the team heading into the 2018 season. One of the things that he said that struck me was that he said that, New Mexico doesn't keep their players all year long to help them with conditioning. Can you talk a little bit about that? And were you there during the off season for any conditioning? Because he said there was a few players.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain your 12-month conditioning regimen?
So, like, he don't pretty much, like, he doesn't force the players. I guess most colleges, like, in the summer, like, it's mandatory for the team to be back and train. But, like, with him, it wasn't mandatory. He said, if you guys want to stay, you guys can stay. If you guys want to go home, you guys got to go home, because a lot of people, a lot of the players, they lived on campus. And if you live on campus in the summer, you pretty much got to pay money every day to stay in the dorms, even if you was on a full ride scholarship or not. He really didn't have no control over that. So he didn't want to, like, put that pressure on people if they couldn't afford it. So I didn't live on campus. I lived off campus. So when school was over, it was about I'll probably say like 4 to 5 pretty much seniors that was going to be seniors. They stayed, and I went back home. because I lived off campus. So I went back home and I worked for about a month, or probably like 3 weeks or something like that. And like pretty much my best friend, his dad was just like, you should go back and just train. So I'm like, all right, you right. Like I knew he was kind of like, I knew where he was coming from. So I'm like, he's like, you shouldn't even be here. You should be back training. So I'm like, all right. So I just drove back pretty much 18, 20 hours back to New Mexico. And it was probably the best decision I did, because like when I look back at it now, like I made a lot of videos of me training and all of that. So when I look back at it now, it was like, it was worth it, because even though it was nobody here, it was just pretty much me and then like 4 other guys, and we was just training with our strength coach. And then they pretty much like, they lived on campus and then I lived off campus, but we pretty much would meet up every day and just train nonstop, like three times a day. And that was from like June all the way to pretty much August 7th when camp started. So I mean, it was hot. It was worth it though. Like I enjoyed the whole thing. Like I was kind of like, since I wasn't going to summer school and pretty much it was just training nonstop, because I was pretty much already done with school. So it was just training nonstop. But I mean, when Coach Fine seen us, he like congratulated us, because it was pretty much just the seniors, because a lot of people couldn't, like I said, a lot of people couldn't afford to stay out here and pay I think it was like $20 a day. So it was just like, he wouldn't put that pressure on the younger kids, like that was fresh out of high school and having to come back and pay. So, I mean, I respect him for that, but like, it was worth it though. I've been training year round. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would say on that.
And you were really happy with the results of your pro day, correct?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I wish I would have got like 2 drills back though. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, my broad jump, because when I did my first broad jump, I jumped a 9.11. Yeah, I think it was, or 9.10 or something like that. And then one of the scouts was all like, "Well, you can't jump like that." And I was like, I was confused on like what he meant, because I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was just like, "You can't jump out." And I guess he said my heels was like going inward, but it made no sense to me. And I was like, this is how we've been training for this. And he was just like, I want you to just jump up. And I was just like, jump up. And then I looked around and I was like I was looking at other players. I'm like, what do you mean by jump up? Like, I'm like, jump out. And then he was just like, either you're going to jump or you're scratched. Like, pretty much you don't get nothing for this. And I was just like, all right. So I just jumped in the air, and I only jumped at 8. I jumped at 8.8, and I was like, that was like right before the 40. And that kind of like took me out of my whole element. It was just like, I still think about it. Everybody was like, you had a good pro day. And I'm just like, I understand that, but like, I knew like I can jump. Like, it still gets to me. Like, I know I can jump farther. So I was just like, I wish I would have got that one back. And I wish I would have got, I think it was the 60-yard shuttle. I think it's the 60-yard shuttle. I wish I would have got that one back too, because I slipped. But those two, I wish I would have got back. But overall, yeah, I had a good pro day, most definitely. But I wish I would have got those two back. And that broad jump, that's gonna get to me forever, really, because I was like 8.8. I just felt like I was just like, what? I was like, oh man, like, and I got it on video. So when I jumped, and I was just like, well, my brother recorded it and he showed me, and like, even my reaction, like, I was just out of it. I'm like, I never jumped this way. Like, I was looking around, like looking at everybody like jump up. Like, I was practicing jumping up before I jumped. So I kind of looked dumb, and then I just jumped, and I was just like, I just want something on the board so it won't be a 0. So I was just like, all right. But I wish I would have got that one back. But overall, my pro day was good, though, for sure.
Good.
Hey, watching some of your tape, albeit it is limited, but I did see, like, you talk a lot to your teammates. Were you a captain on defense?
Yeah, like, pretty much, like, we had, on defense, we had me, Eli, Nick. So, yeah, I think it was 3 of us. It was me, Eli, and Nick. But, like, they got to walk out before the games and, like, did the coin toss and everything. And I was perfectly fine with that. I didn't really – that's not something that really bothered me or anything like that. I'm just a vocal leader, and I like to just lead by example. That's what I took pride on that a lot. Like, even if we was going to the gym, like, they see how hard I'm working. Like, the younger guys, they're like, man, I'm trying to lift like how you lift. It's like, I'm just like telling them, like, you can lift like this. It's just work. Like, just work nonstop, just work. On the field, I'm not, like, I don't really get loud. Like, I'm not like, I play with a lot of, like, pretty much, like, anger or emotions, but I'm not a person that, like, talk. Like, I don't really like to talk. I just like to lead. So everybody knew, like, even now, like, even when I come around now, like, I just was watching the spring game, the spring practices now, and they know, like, even now I was more vocal because I was telling them, like, certain players, like, how to do certain things. If I'm, like, I'm hard on them because they'll be hard on me. So I'm, like, those are my brothers, so I'm just, like, I'm vocal, but at the same time I'm leading them to go the right way. I'm not trying to have them, like, slack off or do anything like, the coach ain't looking, so I'm going to do this. Like, nah, it don't matter if the coach looking or not. Like, you got to lead by example. It's somebody watching you regardless. Like, and being here in this small city that we in, everybody knows if you're a football player or not. So I always tell them, like, you got to be smart about everything you do. Like, even if it ain't on the field, I'm still telling them, like, nah, don't do that, because why would you do that? And they know you play football. Like, you got to be smart. You got to look at this as a profession. Like, you got kids looking at you and everything. So I just led regardless of on the field or off the field. They knew I was a leader regardless. I took that role coming in knowing that I was pretty much, this was my last ride, and everybody knew I was a senior. So I was like, I'm taking that role. Even from the first camp, when fall camp hit, I took that role. Like, I wore jersey number 1, so I had to take that role. So, like, I was just like, before the games or anything, I was just like, all right, I'm going to take this role. So, yeah, I took pride in being a leader to my team this year, for real.
All right, I got a fun one for you here. All right, two-parter. Do you want your first NFL pick or sack? Which one do you want first? And which quarterback do you want it against?
I'm not going to yeah, I would want it to be a pick, and I would want it to be against Tom Brady, for sure.
The GOAT.
Yeah, that alone right there, I'd be happy about that forever. Like, and he from pretty much like where I'm from. Like, he's from this area, so like, yeah, if I was to get an interception on him, it'd be crazy. Like, for real. But I mean, I'm a Tom Brady fan, so it's like, yeah, that'd be crazy. That'd be wild. But for sure, pick, for sure.
Davon, it's been a real honor to talk to you. I read about your story, and I said, I really want to talk to this guy, and I'm really happy that I reached out to you. And the guys and I have been kind of texting each other while you've been sharing your story, and we've been telling each other how impressed we are with you.
Absolutely.
And we can't wait. We really want to talk to you again and kind of follow your career going into the draft and so forth. And so we'd love to talk to you again after
most definitely.
the what was it, April 21st that you got? 17th. Okay, let me circle that.
Yeah.
So we'd love to talk to you after that, and then down the line, and we'll be praying that you get picked up by an NFL team, and hopefully it'll be the Chicago Bears, and we'll get to meet you down at Bourbonnais where training camp is.
Most definitely. I appreciate all of this, for real, man.
And if you end up in Detroit, we can pretend like this never happened, Davon.
Especially Green Bay. Hey, Davon, tell our listeners where they can follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, you can follow me at Davon Muldrow _. It's pretty much the same for everything, really. Instagram as well, just Davon Muldrow _.
All right, brother. We'll be in touch. And again, good luck and thanks for your time, man.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Man, that was good.
Oh, man. I guess. Talk about, we didn't have a lot of stuff on him, but, man, some of the, we've been doing this long enough, Aldo, and you too, Danny. Sometimes you're you're just struggling to pull anything out of some guys. And Davon has such a, I mean, I could have listened to this kid not even talk about football, just life in general. I mean, that's a fucking book right there in itself.
Really?
I'm rooting for him big time. What a story. I mean, he's taking a shower at his uncle's and sleeping in his car.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, it's like, that's rough, man.
That is rough.
Yeah. But
I'm definitely rooting for him. And this is the kind of story that these are the kind of kids, right? They make it as a special teamer. And then lo and behold, one day some guy gets hurt, he gets on the field, and next thing you know, he could be, a vital part of a team. So,
and don't forget, you're talking about Aldo. You question, surprised that the Bears haven't talked to him. Bears are going to be very, very active in the UDFA market. They you don't think this isn't just about draft picks keeping them under wraps. They have plans for all these guys, and you talk about our new defensive coordinator, and what's his background? Yep. He likes DBs. He likes rangy DBs. And one of the things that I should have asked him, I'd like to see where his weight is at right now, with this offseason, and see if he's put a little bit of mass on. Yeah. But
I want to say he's up to 190. That's what they weighed him at his pro day. So I think he added some muscle after the season and prior to his pro days. But the
one thing you see on his tape, again, he's a 5'11", 190-pound guy playing edge, but there's no quit in him. There's big guys coming at him, and he's not backing down. I mean, he's taking them on. He's slipping blocks. He's going after the guys. So that's the competitive edge you see in him, the competitive toughness that you like seeing in these kids, and the fact that he loves playing special teams. That's only going to help him make a roster.
He's still more physical than Shea McClellan.
That National Bowl game, I guess that's the All-Star game, where I want to get that tape, that entire game, because that's apparently where he really had that good game with 4 or 5 tackles and a sack.
He's probably got it.
Yeah.
He's probably got it. I
should ask him to send that, because that'd be fun to watch. All right, fellas. We move on now to we asked Bearlissimo to give us his assessment of the 2015 draft, and it was Ryan Pace's first draft with the Chicago Bears. And I asked Bearlissimo, hey, put together like a 3 or 4 minute, report on that draft so that Danny and Shane and I can react to it. Well, he came back with a 12-minute tape, which I love him for, because he's so thorough and analytical on it. So I want to play that. It's actually about 11 and a half minutes. I want to play that. I put a little production into it, so that's really why it's so long. So let's listen to that, and then we'll talk about Ryan Pace's first draft and see if you guys feel similar to Bearlissimo or we want to debate him a little bit. Here goes.
What's up, Draft on Tap fans? It's Bearlissimo here, just doing a quick dive into the 2015 NFL Draft for the Chicago Bears. Not only the draft picks, but the undrafted free agents that we signed. And what I hope to do with you is take you with me on a journey to look at not only the picks that we made, but who else was available at the time, and use that hindsight, which is 2020, but also to look at the wider skill which Pace seems to show, and I'll show you the reasons why, in the fact that he also took undrafted free agents that have turned out to be either pretty good through what they actually had available to them at the time, or certainly guys that were coachable, and many are actually still in the league, which for most players in the NFL, a career of 4 years is considered to be average or above average. So if we're taking guys both from the draft and undrafted guys, and most of them are still in the league, well, that's got to be a measure of success, hasn't it? So without further ado, I'm just going to go back and we'll look at the first and the most obvious one, which was...
With the 7th pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Kevin White, wide receiver, West Virginia.
John Fox era starts now.
Only played 14 games for us in the whole of his contract, 285 yards total, 0 TDs, played no games at all as a rookie and is no longer with the team. obviously carried a lot of cap number being taken at the pick where he was, but in hindsight, clearly through the injuries and the issues that he had, not being able to stay on the field and not being able to make progress as a receiver has to be viewed as a bust. So at the time when we were looking at the draft, there was a guy that was still on the board that I certainly was enamoured with, and we needed a pass rusher at the time, and that was Vic Beasley. And his best year has been 15.5 sacks, although he has taken a bit of a step back since then. So who else was on the board in that first round? Well, the following names just make the Kevin White pick just seem a lot worse, and that's by far the worst pick of the draft. But as many analysts actually said, that Fox preferred athletes over necessarily guys that might fit scheme or might be the best guys going forward in terms of coaching. So who was left on the board? Well, the following list is not exhaustive, but these are the main names of guys that I think that you'll all recognise and think, wow, maybe we should have took some of these guys. So Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, Kevin Johnson, Arik Armstead, Marcus Peters, Nelson Aguilar. Those were all guys that were taken in the first round after we took Kevin White. And in the second round, at the start of the second round, Landon Collins was also taken at the top of round 2. So those are all guys that I would have preferred to have had the benefit from for the Bears. Certainly in the scheme that we had in the 3-4 defence, Kevin Johnson the corner, Marcus Peters the corner, and Landon Collins the safety. And then obviously you got running backs, Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, both are elite. And Aguilar, who is a bit more of a weapon, it has to be said, than Kevin White. But it is what it is, and we took who we took. And what I think we need to bear in mind when we're looking at the picks that he had was that Pace actually had a holdover of the collegiate scouting staff, and that's the reason possibly why he took these picks. So we go into round 2.
With the 39th pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select, and I like this, Eddie Goldman, nose tackle, Florida State.
Played 15 games as a rookie with 4.5 sacks, which was actually from nose tackle, really good production. So his career stats, he's only missed 12 games in 4 years, which for a nose tackle again is quite significant. And he's been re-signed back through to 2022. He signed a 4-year, $50 million extension, and in 2022, his final season under that deal, it will cost $18.89 million, with a dead cap figure of only $2.9 million if released. So it looks like a team-friendly contract in the last year of his contract if he seems to be wearing down, but also $18.89 million in 2022 possibly might not be that bad, but it's the kind of figure that it wouldn't be too bad for the Bears if we did, in that final year, release Eddie Goldman, if that was the case, if that was best for the team. But as we can all see from what he does now next to Akeem Hicks and with Khalil Mack on the team and the linebackers that we have, he's absolutely a critical piece of our defence in that he keeps our middle linebackers clean. He's able to penetrate the pocket, push the centre of the pocket back, which affects the pass rush and the quarterback's ability to set. So it was a really good pick at the time, and certainly moving forward he's well worth his extension and continues to be one of our better players on defence. So who else was on the board? Well, this is where it gets interesting, because at the second round we've only really got Denzel Perryman, linebacker, Ronald Darby, the corner, and they're the only 2 players in round 2 that would have considered that were there at or after the Bears pick. So I'd consider that actually a win for Pace, as Ronald Darby, as talented as he is, hasn't been able to stay healthy, and Perryman is a middle linebacker but certainly wouldn't start on our team. So we move on to round 3, and this is the only other sort of really bad pick, given that round 3 was a value round, and it's the sort of the area where Ryan Pace has actually since then has actually excelled, and that was Hroniss Grasu, the centre from Oregon. And in theory it looked like it could work. He was a great friend and teammate of Cole Long, but he never seemed to gain the functional strength needed at centre or the technique to stay on the line as a centre. But at least he is still actually in the NFL. He signed a contract with the Titans, so he is actually still in the league. So who else was on the board? Well, we've got Duke Johnson, David Johnson, both running backs, Danielle Hunter, the defensive end, Ty Montgomery. So again, the third round was a round in which we could have took players that would have been significantly better for us. So on to round 4, and we took Jeremy Langford, running back from Michigan State, and Jeremy Langford was out of the league by 2017 and returned at the end of last year for the Falcons for a short stint in 2018, and he hasn't really amounted to anything but one spectacular 83-yard touchdown, if you remember, which was a catch in his rookie season with the Bears.
Cutler, Langford, room to run across the 30, Langford now into Rams territory. Jeremy Langford, can he go? Yes, he can! Touchdown, Chicago!
That was the best play that he's ever produced and hasn't really done much of anything since. He might have actually done better in a Matt Nagy system, but he certainly wasn't so suited to the 3 or 4 yards and a ball of dust offence that we seem to run under Fox. So who else was available? Well, this is actually, we've got two or three players here that could have done a job on our defence. We've got Zadarius Smith, who has just signed with the Packers. Boo hiss. Quan Alexander, middle linebacker, again another guy who is a terrific athlete at middle linebacker, and current Bear Mike Davis. So he was a guy that also possibly better than Langford that we could have took, but again, that's hindsight. So we can't be too hard on the pick, even though the majority of other picks of that round haven't really done much of anything in the league, and many of them aren't actually still in the league. And now we get on to the absolute gold dust of a pick that was Adrian Amos in round 5. And Adrian was a dependable player for the Bears in every single season that he played for us, and I think he actually improved year on year, and certainly I feel that his best year in coverage was actually last year, and that was down to his own development, but also the Bears' defensive progression with the other players that were added by Ryan Pace, culminating arguably in his best season for the Bears. Some of that was down to the fact that he had a real true deep centre fielder next to him in Eddie Jackson, a real difference maker in the last 2 years, and that's the 2 years that we've really seen the best of Adrian Amos. So I think it's not insignificant that Eddie Jackson has actually sort of been the trigger that has pushed Adrian Amos onto better production on the field, in certainly in pass defence. And it looks like the deal that he signed with the Packers means that we're going to get a compensatory pick possibly in the 4th round next year. So who else was available? Okay, so Stephon Diggs, who I think we all know. Jay Ajayi. Obviously Diggs was the absolute steal of that round, but out of 32 picks that everyone received, and I think it was 8 or 9 compensatory picks in that round, Diggs was the best prospect, Amos possibly the second, and Ajayi a distant third. So when you bear that in mind with the number of picks, that's actually not a bad pick to have taken. Round 6, we really are probably going to gloss over. It was Tayo Fabaluje, who was a tackle coming out of college, turned into a guard. He's been out of the league since then. His first year, he had substance abuse issues in that first year. He's been on 2 AAF rosters this year and has since been placed on IR and has been waived out of the league. So who else is available? Trey McBride, Trevor Siemian, both are in the 7th round, but at this point you'd be amazed if you drafted anyone that stayed on the team. So that's the guys we drafted. What about the undrafted free agents? Well, the following names were taken. John Timu, linebacker. He was dependable backup for us for several years and a core special teamer, still in the league. Cameron Meredith, who signed a nice deal with the New Orleans Saints, has since restructured, but he looked like he was turning into a quality wide receiver when he had his injury. So he's still in the league. Bryce Callahan, undrafted free agent, developed into a very nice nickelback for the Bears. Struggled in staying healthy to a degree, but from this draft he's another guy that the Bears got absolutely amazing value from, and possibly also a compensatory pick, although I believe that's not going to be the case. We also took Jonathan Anderson, a special teamer who is still in the league. Howard Jones Corte, who's on a team again this off-season. So whilst it was bad with the White, Grasso and arguably Langford picks, the guys we picked were all above average guys, and certainly players that the Bears have actually benefited from drafting, but guys who were reasonably well considered at the time. So given that Pace inherited his staff and still managed to get 2 great picks and several other players who are still on NFL rosters, despite any disappointment with the top pick, you've got to then consider, I think you'll agree with me, that this draft was to be considered better than average than the rest of the guys in the NFL. So that's my 10-minute synopsis of the 2015 NFL draft with Ryan Pace, and I think you'll agree with me when you look at it on the round, he did a pretty good job. So In pace we trust. Cheers.
Excellent job there by our man George Bayliss, a.k.a. Bearlissimo. And I think that the big headline there for me is that he being Ryan Pace, managed to come away with this draft with a couple of really good players, despite the fact that he wasn't leading his own scouts into this operation, and there was a lot of turnover almost immediately after that draft. What do you guys think about the 2015 draft? Danny, let me begin with you.
Yeah, obviously the Kevin White pick is going to be the headliner, but if you heard the guys that Bearlissimo was saying in the third round, Daniel Hunter, that would have been a nice guy to get instead of Hieronymus Grasu.
Yes.
There was and then I guess later on in the draft was Stephon Diggs. It's like guys like that. But when he was going through the first round of the guys he named after the Kevin White, I mean, in that draft I wanted Amari Cooper, but then we knew that he was going to make it to the Bears. But the only guy I guess I really I'd say we could have used or would have been a hit would have been Landon Collins, but he went all the way in the top of the second round. Right. So if Pace had used that 7th overall pick on Landon Collins, everyone would have been roasting him. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess to kind of sum it up, I mean, that definitely was the worst of the Ryan Pace draft classes. And although you made a great point, and I think a lot of people don't, recall that is that he was working with the previous regime's scouts, and that wasn't until after that draft that he was able to clean house and bring in his own people. And, the record shows that once he got his scouts in there, his director of scouting in there, he's had better and more productive drafts. And that's all we can go with right now.
Yeah, and you talk about keeping the scouts, and it wasn't just that. He was all of those scouts, and Ryan Pace himself were using Phil Emery's grading system for all those players. That wasn't even Ryan Pace's grading system that was put in place. But it's not. Some people will call that an excuse. And listen, the thing with Kevin White, I know George called him the by far the worst pick, and I feel sorry for the kid. You can say whatever you want. The kid, it's broken bones. This isn't ligaments. It's. I mean, the kid's snake bitten, and it's. I can't imagine being in that position and doing what these guys do and pouring your blood, sweat, and tears. And, year after year after year, you're getting these freak injuries. And if they never would have happened, it would have been really interesting to see what happened with Kevin White, because obviously the repeated broken bones, it did zap him of his athleticism, and I think it zapped a lot of life out of him, and it gives you, a whole different attitude on all of this. He had that money bag secured, obviously, but he more than made up for it here heading into round 2. I think, Aldo, I was involved here at the time, and I was screaming, screaming for Eddie Goldman, one of my favorite players that I've covered, and still a huge fan. And I really think he's one of the most underappreciated players in the entire NFL, no matter position.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. I remember getting into it on Twitter with our good buddy Math Bomb, Kent Platty. He was not a fan of Eddie Goldman coming out of college, and he and I were going back and forth a little bit on that. I thought he was being unkind to him, and I think Goldman has proven all of his detractors wrong. And whoever doesn't believe that Eddie Goldman is a superior nose tackle, one of the top nose tackles in football, just hasn't been watching very closely. I recall even at the end of the season when Goldman and Hicks were getting accolades, people in Green Bay and Detroit and so forth were still saying, I don't think these guys are that good. And they just clearly are not watching what we're watching. So
are you referring to Peter Bukowski?
who struck again today?
Oh boy!
We're not doing tweets of the week, but if we were, Bukowski would get another one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
The thing about nose tackles, they're not sexy picks. They're not sexy players, and then they're not going to look good in shorts and running these tests at the combine. But what you have to do is this is where you got to put on tape, and we talk about context all the time. See what he does. See the blockers he occupies. See the lanes he opens up for the linebackers behind him to go in untouched to the ball carrier, to the quarterback. This is the kind of things you look at with guys like Eddie Goldman, those guys up front. It's not a sexy position. It's one of the more undervalued positions in all the NFL, in my opinion. So again, there's certain positions you got to watch the tape. You got to see what the player does, and not just go by the numbers or how he looks in shorts.
Would you guys have been upset with Ryan Pace if in that first draft he would have traded away draft assets to move up to get Marcus Mariota, which a lot of people suspected?
That's what I was hoping for it. I'll tell you how my day went that day.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you guys know my infatuation with the draft, and I was home watching every bit of breaking news on ESPN and NFL Network. Well, Ian Rappaport happened to come on, and if you remember, that was the draft that was in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And he came on and he said there's been some talk at the top of this draft, and it's been from the home team Chicago Bears talking about moving up. Ryan Pace is very interested in Marcus Mariota. And, there was talk maybe, would it involve Cutler going back to his roots in Nashville and that whole thing. And Aldo, you and I talked multiple times here. That was the move. We just wanted Ryan Pace to blow it up from Jump Street,
right?
Get his quarterback and do it. And, obviously having the benefit of hindsight right now, I still like Mariota, but I think he's, overall he's not living up to the hype that he came in with, for sure. But that was all things considered, if I had the first pick in the draft, I was taking a quarterback. I was taking Mariota over Jameis Winston all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. That was me. But I
agree too.
Yeah, at the time I totally would have signed off on that deal to make the move for the quarterback.
I remember that was right before the draft started. It was like 5 minutes before the draft was going on, and then I remember that report from Rappaport, and I'm like, Ryan Pace is going to do this in his first draft. I was like, man,
I recorded. Ian Rappaport actually talked about it a little bit earlier, and I recorded this shot on my phone, and I tweeted out the video of it. Well, Ian Rappaport liked it and retweeted it, and once he did that, my phone never stopped buzzing for hours. I literally had a giant battery bank with my phone plugged in, just because we were going on. I think we were doing little blurbs for you, Aldo, after every single pick.
Right.
Then, and my phone just nonstop from that retweet from Ian Rappaport. I was ready for it to happen, but I think it just came down to them not wanting to take on the albatross of Jay Cutler with the contract, and they wanted to start fresh with their own quarterback.
The other thing about that particular draft that I was a little bit disappointed in, and I've probably been proven wrong. I wanted Pace to draft a quarterback in that draft, and that was not a good draft for drafting quarterbacks after Winston and Mariota. But there were guys like Brett Hundley, who I thought would have been a good investment in the 4th or 5th round. Trevor Siemian, the kid from Northwestern, who was picked in the 7th round, 250th overall. I thought he might have been a good investment as a developmental quarterback. We've heard general managers, and we've heard Ryan Pace, and before that Phil Emery say we should draft a quarterback every year and develop him and so forth, and you never know what will happen. Nobody ever drafts a quarterback.
But I think that's such a myth. I mean, nobody's drafting a quarterback every single year, and I mean, come on. At what point is it just wasting perfectly good draft pick.
Right.
You know, and I think it's good for people to say, but you know who says that? People that don't have a quarterback. You know,
right.
That's who says that.
Especially this year, you know, people are asking, should the Bears draft a quarterback? I'm like, no, they have 5 picks.
No, yeah.
That's all they have.
Yeah.
This quarterback class is not the greatest. You know, I would just wait off another year or two. Plus, you just re-signed Tyler Brace, so you have your quarterback room back from last year. Again, this year, there is no need to draft a quarterback this year, especially with only 5 picks.
I would be totally active in the UDFA market if there's a kid out there that shows some potential, because I'm a big believer in that. You don't have to draft one every year, but I'm putting a guy on my practice squad every single year at quarterback, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, I would do that this year, and I'd use another spot on my practice squad for a kicker to have a guy ready to go, and I want whoever my starter is to know that there's another guy right there waiting to take his job. But I am a big believer in that. I'm not a big believer in people just wasting draft assets on a quarterback every single year, because it makes no sense to me.
Do you think there's one out there, Shayne, that you like in terms of the UDF market that might slip through?
It's tough, Danny. It really is this year. You know, I was always high, and unfortunately, I got to go back to my arch nemesis here, the Philadelphia Eagles. I was when Washington let Sudfield go. They had let him go, and Philly ended up picking him up, and he's a kid that I really like his upside, and Philadelphia is actually very, very high on him. They put a second-round tender on him this year to keep people away, and I love that. You know, you get these young guys in there, because let's be honest, Chase Daniel, I love everything about Chase Daniel, just as long as he's not on the field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's extremely limited.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's worth his weight in gold off of the field with Mitch. Totally understand it, but if there's a guy out there with some upside, with some arm talent, I'm not bashful about bringing him in, because I don't think Tyler Bray is that guy. Again, I think he's just a fallback plan, you know, and another voice in that quarterback room, like you said, Danny, for Mitch. But I think that is one of the biggest things that is overlooked in the NFL, is always trying to churn the bottom of that quarterback depth chart to find a guy and to keep you know, an extra guy rostered on the practice squad, because who knows what's going to happen? Nobody knows. You know, you look back at the Washington Redskins. They drafted a guy number 2 overall, and they turned right around and they drafted another guy in the 4th round. And how did that work out for them? Yeah, injuries were a big factor with Kirk Cousins taking over. But this year, I get it. There's nobody that I'm truly in love with. You know, a later round guy like Danny, we both talked about ripping a little bit. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be a UDFA or anything like that. Obviously, he's going to be a guy that's going to get drafted. But there's...
I have a name for you. I want to throw at you and see what you think about.
Yeah.
As an undrafted free agent, Trace McSorley.
Not a big fan overall. I know Chris Sandlin's probably rubbing one out hearing you say that, but
and I know he's not the biggest, but yeah. he's athletic. He's gritty. He's a leader, and a guy you can kind of bring in. And I think it was at the Combine, I forgot, it was or Senior Bowl. They're asking him if he would play DB, or I think it was at the Combine. They're asking him if he would run DB drills. He said, "I'll do whatever you guys want." So if you think of him like an athletic guy that Nagy can use in the meantime, it's just a guy I like. The traits, he doesn't have the arm strength, like I said, the height or anything like that I like, but the intangibles, the leadership, the ability, you think Nagy could get it out of him, develop him? I don't know.
I mean, for me, if we're going to be completely honest, I would be more interested in him in the developmental DB role. But I mean, that doesn't mean that I'm right either. I've just never been a big McSorley guy. But I mean, it's a good name, and you're not going to find a lot of guys with those athletic traits even in the UDFA market that can pass the football. But it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, I'm not a fan at all. I just think that this guy, he's not an NFL quarterback in my mind. I'd rather see is Kyle Schumer draft eligible this year, the quarterback from Vanderbilt, who's Pat Schumer's son?
He is.
Yeah.
I'd rather see us take a chance on a guy like that.
That's a good name.
Yeah.
I think he could get drafted, though, late.
Oh, really?
Danny?
Yeah, I do. I think he's like the 6th, 7th round because, he's got the size. I think he's 6'4". His arm strength isn't, in my opinion, isn't up there for starter. But he's a guy who's a coach's son. He's, he knows the game. Obviously, a guy who can come in. You can, a worst case scenario, he's your backup for 6, 7 years. So I think but I do think he gets drafted. That's why I didn't bring him up.
Yeah. I think one interesting name, and this is a local guy for me, but he's got an extensive injury history, is Dungy, Eric Dungy from Syracuse. Mm-hmm. I think he's got some traits to work with. He's got that. It's always driven me crazy with Eric. He's got that weird delivery where the ball just seems to come off of his hand. Weird, but I've watched him, and my family has real strong connections to the university, so we're there quite often, and it's he's gotten hot, and I mean he's got some traits to work with the arm strength and mobility. His biggest thing is just not being able to stay healthy, and he's a little bit older, but I guess if I was going to throw a name out there for a UDFA type guy to maybe take a flyer on, I think that Eric Dungy might be my name.
Very cool. All right, next week, you guys are going to go through your top 5 edge rushers. And despite the fact that Aaron Lynch has been signed to a 1-year contract, I still suspect that the Chicago Bears are going to be targeting an edge rusher in this draft. And that doesn't mean that they're going to draft one, because maybe all the ones they like are going to be gone by the time they pick. But if one that they like is there with pick number 87, don't be surprised if they pick one. And I'm really interested in knowing who you guys are targeting.
You can't – Danny will agree with me. Aldo, I'm sure you will too. You can't have enough of these guys. Mm-hmm. If you have a guy there that you believe in, an edge rusher, you can't pass it up. You cannot.
Yep. And while I have
correct,
hope,
you cannot have too many pass rushers.
Right. I have hope in guys like Isaiah Irving and Kylie Fitz. Nonetheless, if a guy like O'Shane Eximenez is available with the 87th pick,
look at you busting that name out there like a pro.
Dude, he's been on him since the Senior Bowl. He's been on him since the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I know.
That's been my man crush at the Senior Bowl. After Danny and I talked to Cole Tracy, the kicker, I was like, I'm not as turned on by
you saw it quickly on Cole Tracy.
Yeah,
that was like the the girl at the bar where she's kind of far away. You're like, oh, she's hot. Then he gets closer, like, oh no, that's not the one I want to talk to.
Yeah, he missed his first field goal attempt at the Senior Bowl, and that capped it off. And I was like,
screw him.
Well, what got me was when he said Cody Parkey's a great kicker.
Exactly.
I was like, dude, yeah, you're sorry.
He said it with a straight face, too. That made it even worse. So I said, nah. But next week, we'll talk about edge rushers. And then the following week, you guys will give me your list on tight ends. And I'm not sure what other position group we'll look at. But nonetheless, we've got a lot of work yet to do. Next week is we will record on April 10th, release on April 11th. We've got a couple of people with tentative goals for interviews. We'll save those names until we get a firm commitment out of them. And guys, any final words before we turn off the microphones?
No, I just, I went into tonight not really knowing what to expect from both of our guests, not just from a LJ Collier, we obviously knew a lot about. Danny and I did, and I know you did too, Aldo, but Davon, totally blown away. I mean, remove football out of it. You talk about an impressive individual, and everything that his mother being an inspiration for him. And like Danny said, I get home from work and you'll sit back and you'll crack open a beer and you look over at your wife and kid and you're thankful for what you have. And this guy was thankful for being able to take a hot shower before he walked back to his car to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So, puts things in perspective, and doesn't matter where this kid ends up, in San Francisco, Detroit, Chicago, the Ottawa Rough Riders, wherever. He's got a supporter here in me, rooting for him all the way, because that's what this process is all about. We know who Roquan Smith is. We know who all these guys up top are. Not everybody knows who these people are. The NFL finds them, but some of them are still cast aside. Some of them are still missed. And I just totally impressed with the person that he, is, and the way that he came across tonight, and rooting for that kid 100%.
Danny?
Yeah, I agree with Shayne 100%. I mean, totally blown away by his interview, his personality, the story, the backstory, and the inspiration that he is. That he's not giving up on his dream, and I am rooting for him so hard, and I hope he finds his way here in camp and somehow makes his way. I have a feeling he's gonna stick to a roster as a special teamer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's got that drive, he's got that determination. I mean, he's got a heck of a story to tell. So, I could see this kid making it somewhere, whether it's a practice squad or as a end of the roster kind of special teams guy. But yeah, I mean, two different spectrums. We got LJ Collier, who's been bandied about it, bottom of the first round, top of the second round, and then we have a guy who's just same thing, same kind of attitude, dog on the field and just humble off the field. But he's trying to make just trying to get a chance, trying to get a sniff at the NFL experience. So two great interviews, two great kids, and like I said, two guys that I and Shayne and Aldo, I'm sure yourself, we're all going to be rooting for. So.
Indeed. All right. If you are on the Twitter machine, make sure you follow Danny. It's DSHIMON56, and of course, Shayne is at WASRAM. It's Marsaw backwards. How do you pronounce that? Wazram?
Wazram.
Whatever. Tell your friends about Draft on Tap. This is episode number 3. All of them are worth your time to find out what's happening in the NFL draft. I really appreciate you guys doing all this homework to educate us, Shayne and Danny. And remember, if you drink, please do not drive, and always bear down.
Bear down. Sorry, Sandlin McSorley sucks.